Okay, that's us. We're on now.
Oh, hi! I didn't see you there.
Right. I'm going to be keeping track of anytime we like cough or anything like that. I'll be keeping track over here so I can edit it out later instead of having to listen through the whole thing.
Unlike the cough break from the last one.
Right, cough break that I said I would edit out, but totally left in.
That was episode 0.
Yeah, right. That episode did not. The episode went well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what happened was I failed to tell the software which microphone we were using. So it used the microphone on my laptop, which is somewhere over here by my hand, which is as far away from you as possible.
That's okay.
Yep. So that was fun. And then I spent a few days this week, over the intervening weeks, tweaking the website, the Blogspot website, and today I went in and made like along the right-hand column of the page, there was just like a bunch of text stuff, like links and stuff that you could click on, and I went ahead and like made little graphics for each one of them. So there's like a little Twitter icon with the color scheme, and a little YouTube logo with the color scheme and all that stuff. So we're
special.
Yeah, right. Yep. So anyway. Last night was interesting. We had club last night where we teach kids how to play card and board games.
Fun times.
Right. And then afterwards, I had this brilliant idea that we would go and get burgers and shakes and stuff at this place called Steak and Shake. Some of you may be familiar with.
And funny enough, like whenever you guys say, hey, we're going somewhere, from there, from club, Elise has always usually got so much stuff. She's like, I can't go anywhere. And she's like, oh, food? Let's go. I'm like,
right.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's cool. I was shocked. She was all into it.
Excited to go, right?
Yep.
And it was maybe not the best idea because...
well, it was a good idea, just...
Yeah, right. The idea was fine. The reality of the situation was different. I felt really bad because apparently what had happened was they had a lot of new people on at the same time because there's a high turnover rate at that location because it's right next to Walmart. I personally think that they would do a lot better if they had no drive-through.
Yes,
but,
it's possible.
Because it's not like it's... I mean, it's not really McDonald's-y. I mean, I think it'd be better if it was a sit-down restaurant because, I don't know. But,
well, then, for people who don't know, Steak and Shake is a fast food restaurant.
Right.
And you can do a drive-through completely, which is what I've always done. But now you go inside, it's actually like table service where you get waited on and you actually have real plates. And,
right. You don't order at the counter and then find a table yourself.
So you're actually being waited on, that was a new thing for me.
Right. So as far as service is concerned, that's a step up from McDonald's, yeah?
Yes, but except for the service last night, specifically had some issues going on.
Well, yeah, and then not only they were behind the 8 ball as far as getting food out of the kitchen was concerned, but they also had, like, people just taking advantage of it and complaining to get free food, and people just walking up into areas they had no business being in. Like, that one guy was practically in the kitchen. He was well over the threshold into the kitchen, like, yelling at people for his food, and it was like, why are you doing that, guy?
He's that guy.
He is that guy.
And unfortunately, there was more than one that guy last night.
Right. So they're dealing with all of that, and then, like, a group of at least 10 kids come in all together. Like 10 young guys, and they must have been a sports team or something like that, or I don't know what. But they all came in at the same time, and they stood there for like a good 15 minutes just not having a problem with the fact that they had to wait 15 minutes to get seated.
At a fast food restaurant.
Right, and we're all sitting there like, why aren't they leaving? Like, I would have left a long time ago. The food honestly didn't... I mean, it took like half an hour to get our food, which is kind of long for a place like that, but...
Not quite fast food.
No, not quite fast food, but at least it was fresh when it got to us. The fries were fresh, and the food was decent. The only problem I had with my food was there was a tomato on my burger.
Right, which is easily removed.
Right. It wasn't like it was mayo or... what are I can't remember if it's Burger King or McDonald's that does this. Probably Burger King, because I used to eat there a lot when I was a kid, but they have those, like the onions, the way they put them on there is like, they're like, chip? I don't know. It's hard to describe.
No, that's
like
that's definitely
onions
it's
or
definitely
something?
McDonald's
Oh,
because Elise doesn't like onions or pickles on burgers.
Yeah.
So it's always it's so difficult because she'll have to sit there. If we forget to ask or they mess it up, she'll sit there with the burger in her hand, like little piece here, little piece there. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. So like, and then I always end up, because I don't want her to deal with it, even though I have no problem with those things on my burger.
Right.
Like I want 2 quarter pounders of cheese, no onions, no pickles on either of them.
Right.
So just get the whole thing down. But yeah, they're the little.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that. Because I mean, I guess it's because if it's just rings of onion, like you can just take those off. But they're like these little tiny like ground up onion pieces. I don't know what that's all about, but it's pretty gross. Those and mayo are like the worst to get off.
Those are not your thing.
Yeah, ketchup. I mean, usually I don't know. Every now and again you get mustard, but for some reason they seem to always want to put the onions on there. I don't know. Everybody loves them apparently.
Well, because the burgers aren't real meat anyway, so they need to add flavor somehow.
Yeah. I haven't eaten at Burger King, or actually I haven't eaten McDonald's in a long time. I've eaten at Burger King more recently because they had that Angry Whopper, and I liked that a lot.
Yes, nothing, a little spice.
But I wish we had a Hardee's or a Carl's Jr.
There's no Hardee's. The one, it's funny. We were talking about this last night on the way home from said experience.
Right.
The one thing that this area does not have, not talking about fast food, is TGI Fridays.
We don't?
We don't have a Fridays around here. I literally, I think the nearest Fridays, I think we looked up, is literally going towards Orlando.
That's weird.
For those people who don't know, who actually are listening, we're in Florida.
Yeah, we don't have, there's not, what is that one that's right over by the movie theater? Is that a Chili's?
I think so.
Yeah. I feel like there's a TGI Fridays in Clearwater, but I could be imagining
It's possible.
it. Yeah,
it's possible.
Know. It's not worth driving to Clearwater for,
right.
That's for sure. I mean, you could just go to Chili's or
exactly
any number of places
it's just,
that are nearly identical.
Having originally been from not this area,
right?
We had Fridays everywhere, and that was the place. And there was the Chili's and the other places that were kind of like, oh, that's a rare thing. I'm going to go there,
right?
But so we were talking about that. It's like, wow, they had a couple things that we'd always get there. Oh, I wish there was the Fridays around. Oh well.
Yeah. Oh, you can go to Perkins. I hate Perkins.
Oh,
it's the worst.
Perkins it never fails with Perkins with us. It always ends up being a place that we go to eat after we get really bad news about something.
Wow.
And it's not like a purposeful thing.
Just right
but
nearby.
But we learned, like, in the first few years of our marriage, which was, we're talking early 2000s at this point.
Mm-hmm. And you were living up north.
We were we were up north. We're maybe a couple years into our, and we got married in 2001. Mm-hmm. So a couple years after that, like a couple bad things started happening around things that we did, not necessarily with our jobs, but some other activities that we were part of. We did, marching band, drum, bugle corps,
right?
And without fail, something bad would go down. We're like, oh, I just need to go out, and we pull over, and there's Perkins. And we're eating the greasiest, most horrible food.
Yeah, man.
I mean, their breakfast isn't so bad. There was one by her, because now Elise used to work at a high school, so they made an okay. They had a bunch of different eggs Benedict. They had like a Southwestern eggs Benedict with a spicy hollandaise sauce, and this and that. So we, that. But always remember this a couple times, like, we're like, angrily eating horrible food because of some bad things that have happened. Like,
terrible.
We need to not do this.
I was going to say, I feel like it's hard to fuck up breakfast because
the
food is almost purposefully designed or just by circumstantially designed to be food that you can make when you're half awake.
You would hope.
But you're talking about like Eggs Benedict is a little more complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you mess up frying an egg? Well, you can burn it, you can undercook it. I mean, for people who are very specific about it, I want, over easy, and this, it's got to be a specific way.
Eggs can be a bitch, though.
Yes.
Like, there's nothing really scientific about eggs, man. I mean, trying to poach an egg, you either hit it perfect, like 1 out of 10 times, and the yolk is still loose, and the white is formed, but, half the time you just go over and the yolk is still wet when you break it open, but it's not oozing. You know what I mean? But it's not hard boiled egg yolk either.
So this is where I'm most people. I hate runny yolk.
Yeah.
So it's like, give me a scrambled egg.
I used to when I was a kid. I used to hate runny yolk, And then I think it was, I don't know, probably sometime in the last 10 years, I had huevos rancheros, and I'd never had that before. And it's like such a shit show anyway, that like you got like salsa and tortillas and egg and, you know, who knows what else on there. And it's just like mushy and sloppy anyway.
Right.
So it's just like egg yolks, throw that
All
in
right,
there.
just mix it around.
Right, welcome to the party.
So you got kind of accustomed to that.
Right, and then I was like, and when I was a kid, I'd never had poached eggs. And thinking of it and like knowing how it was done, it just didn't make any fucking sense at all. Like, you put an egg into water, like that's just going to fall apart. That's just going to go everywhere, right? But like,
no, you got to stir it just the right way, and
you got to add vinegar, and the water has to be boiled, but then you have to take it off the boil, and you know, time it to 4 to 5 minutes, and
that's where I say I will just mix an egg up with a whisk,
right,
throw it in a pan. Hey, when it's not wet anymore,
yeah,
I take it out and I'm done.
Yeah, scrambled eggs are hard to fuck up. I mean, I'm April, my coworker April, and I were talking about this the other day because we work together at the same store, and it's a store that sells cooking supplies. So yeah, we work at the store together, and we were talking about eggs, and you know, because we were supposed to be demoing using the green pan and making omelets, you know, to demo the green pan, and which is like this ceramic coated frying pan. And she was like, somebody had just joked about me making the omelets because they know I like omelets, and I just got this green pan, and I used it like 8 times the first day I had it, or whatever like that. And I was like, I don't know, man, because my omelets, the way I like omelets most of the time is not the way most people like omelets. They like them to just be yellow, you know?
Yeah.
And still, not like wet, but like not dry either. And I like mine to be like brownish on the exterior.
A little crunch,
not
yeah.
like burnt, you know?
Right, a little crunchy.
But like, no, I can look at it and say, that's cooked.
Right. Yeah.
Visually confirmed cooked. But I actually slid away from that because the last couple days I've gone crazy over this idea of making pulled pork omelets.
Yes.
And, you know, like I've been messing with my formula a little bit. Like, I'll just use 1 egg instead of 2 eggs because it's too thick, you know, so I'll try that. And messing with my proportions on how much half and half or, you know, I use instead of milk or whatever. So yeah, actually the last couple omelets I've made have been a little more on the yellower side, but they're easier to manage if they're thin. You know, if they're thick, that's like...
Now, do you make, because there's 2, like, very classic ways. Do you make just the eggs, and then do you, like, put the mixture in and fold the top over, or do you mix all the stuff into the eggs?
I do the second, yeah. I
mix
kind
all
of
the stuff in.
I basically make, it's like a shell, right? It's kind of like a taco, like a tortilla
right,
type thing. Yeah, so I wait for it to set a little bit. It's still a little bit wet on the top. So, but it's not like in there. I know what you mean. Like people put like diced peppers and stuff like that, onions and things like that, all up in there. They want it throughout the egg. But yeah, no, I put it kind of in the middle of like a
which I think is more
thing.
classic, where it's the eggs are just themselves and you fill it that way.
Right. Because I mean, you can put vegetables in there and stuff like that, and that's not so difficult to manage. But like, I'm not going to put pulled pork in with the egg yolks, you know?
Because I can only imagine what color the egg would turn out.
That would be a bit of a weird situation. Well, this pulled pork that I'm using too. Like we're just talking about food.
I was about to say, welcome to the Wayne and Toddcast, where we talk about food.
Yeah,
not
right.
nerdy stuff today.
This is the food episode. Well, we're nerding out about food, right?
Apparently.
Nerds love food, bro.
Well, some more than others.
Yeah. So this pulled pork is like not like, well, it does taste like most pulled pork, but it's more like of a tomato-y pulled pork flavor, not like straight up just barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
You know, because like you could just put barbecue sauce all over everything anyway. But yeah, it's interesting the way it works with the egg. I've been liking it, but I'm out of eggs, so I had to tell Liz she needed eggs for something else.
You need to bring eggs home.
I'm like, yeah, you know, you wanted to make those lemon bars. We're out of eggs. You have to buy some more eggs. Meanwhile, I still have a little pulled pork in the fridge. I'm sure I'll use it that way too.
Next iteration of your formula.
Yeah, right. I'll be mixing, because I do that every now and again. I'll get into this mode where I'm like making this type of food. A few years back, maybe like 5 years ago, I went through this phase where I just made like French toast all the time. Because I was like, I figured out all these great techniques for French toast. You toast the bread first, and then you dip it, and it's like, you know, you do all these different things, and it comes out wonderful. And then, you know, just like, okay, that's enough. I've eaten that like 3 meals a day for a couple weeks, and that's just crazy.
Time to move on.
Yeah, right. So that was So food is good.
Well, no, and just to tag on, it's like and it's sort of the same way about finding something too, because it's very much a New Jersey / Northeast thing. We've talked about Taylor ham. Mm-hmm. So when I actually found Taylor ham or pork roll, which is really known, Taylor is actually a brand name,
right?
But it's just known as Taylor ham everywhere. But pork roll, egg and cheese on a hard roll up in Jersey, and that was like one of the things when we moved down here. You can't find. You couldn't find Taylor ham anywhere. No, I was like, "What's that?" Right. Okay, you're an idiot. No good bagels, no good pizza, which we've found since we've moved. But
cheesecake too.
Well, cheesecake, there's a couple close.
Yeah.
You gotta get that quote unquote New York style. But when I found out the Publix had Taylor ham, I'm like, oh, so we had breakfast a couple times. We brought it over to you guys. That's when we made sandwiches. We're like, yeah, it was Taylor ham for everybody.
Yeah, we liked it.
It's good stuff.
Or like me with I make Chinese pie all the time.
Right.
Like, Liz was like, I got ingredients for Chinese pie. I have one in the oven right now. It's actually, it's well cooked, but I just left it in there to let it chill out, let it set and, firm up, so to speak. It's got to rest. You can't just eat it straight out of the oven because then it's just sloppy and it falls apart. You got to let it get together. But Chinese pie, it's a family. I didn't really know anybody who ate Chinese pie growing up. I thought my family made it up, but it's really a thing because most people just assume you're talking about shepherd's pie.
Right.
You're like, it's beef and then corn in the middle and mashed potatoes on top. People are like, oh, usually it's carrots and peas and stuff in the middle, or green, whatever green vegetable you have available. And I'm like, no, this is a thing called Chinese pie. And they're like, there's nothing Chinese about that. And I'm like, I know, but I'm going to tell you this whole story about where it got the name and yada yada, which is basically just, Chinese cooks who made food for people who worked on the railroads in America around the turn of the century, made this food because that's what they had for ingredients. The people who owned these railroad companies were British, and they were just like, make this food for those Irish guys. Do that. So it's not Chinese at all. And, they all really just fall under the category of cottage pies, apparently. But, shepherd's pie, most people make it with beef nowadays, but it should be made with lamb.
Shepherd's pie is supposed to be lamb, and then cottage pie is supposed to be beef.
Right.
And they're sort of the same besides that. I just know, because Elise makes shepherd's pie.
Yeah. But shepherd's pie is even a little more, stewy. It's not, it's got kind of there's more...
I think it depends on the cut of beef used. I know, the recipe that she uses has chopped meat, but it's got carrots and peas and corn. Okay. I think corn. At least, it's a little bit of everything mixed in. So, stuff you would generally see in a stew, yes, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Staple foods. Most of the stuff you just always have. But I'm going to take a moment to open my beverage while we're not talking. It's going to be the Pepsi Max moment for Joe and Chris. Oh, that wasn't... Oh, well, sorry. That was my Dr. Pepper opening. For people who don't know what Dr. Pepper is, I feel sorry for you. But
you might know what Mr. Pibb is.
Mr. Pibb, maybe. I don't know if they have... Well, some people know, Dr. Thunder,
I've
all
never
these
heard Dr.
store
Thunder.
brands. President's Choice and stuff like that.
Right.
They'll have, generic Dr. This or Mountain Thunder or, all these different...
I think most people do kind of think, well, that's the Walmart version of that.
Right.
But, yeah, Dr. Thunder.
Yep.
Oy. So to go back to a conversation we were having last week, you were saying last episode.
Last episode, right.
The episode that doesn't count because it's 0?
Yeah.
Just picking up on something we did start watching. We caught up a lot on that DC TV we were watching.
Right.
And we're current with everything that's going on. And we did start watching Legends of Tomorrow.
Right.
Which, like you said, you watched the first episode and you're like, ugh.
I mean, half. Because it was split. They gave it conveniently...
You watched Pilot 1, Pilot 2.
Right.
And, okay, I'm going to agree, definitely to a point, it's like, well... This is definitely the cheesy thing. I feel like there's times where there's too many characters.
Yeah, I felt that.
And it's always, and we've seen this in other things where, there's 9 people on this team of heroes. So almost every time, alright, you come with me. The rest of you just hang out in the spaceship.
Right.
Because we don't have room for everybody to be in the story. On the other hand, we are we're enjoying it for what it is. Mm-hmm. At least as part of what's going on. I'm not nearly as driven to watch everything as some of the other ones, but within the collection of those 3 shows, we're watching it. It's definitely the third string of the 3 shows.
Yeah, I felt like you mentioned that it feels like there are too many characters. Like the Hawkman and Hawkwoman characters,
Yeah.
like they could have their own show.
Uh-huh.
Like there's enough going on with those characters.
Oh,
And
yes.
this was just my feeling on knowing the little bit I know about DC Comics, because I was a Marvel Comics kid. But like knowing enough about the Hawkman characters and the whole Hawk world thing and what goes on in their world, and then seeing just half of the pilot episode, I was like, this could be its own show.
Well, in theory, this show is about them.
Yeah.
All the other people on the team are added in to make a team, and we brought in all these other characters, and we tied in. We got the Atom from Arrow, and we've got the White Canary from Arrow, and we took this person from there. That's all great. But in theory, this whole thing is about Hawkman, Hawkgirl, and the bad guy Vandal Savage, because they're tied together from ancient times in Egypt.
Right.
And it's all about beating Vandal Savage and him wanting to try and get like Hawkman, Hawkgirl. That's it. Everyone else is, not
along for the ride.
They're along for the ride, and okay, they have their moments, and of course you go, "Oh, I see what's going to happen here."
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were watching it, and I definitely agree, not the best TV show. We're watching it to be as part of the connection, just because we watch the other things regularly, just in case there are connections, if there's some type of an overflow, because Arrow did show up in one of the episodes. Like, all right, well, so now it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
To fill in the spaces.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. I feel like it's kind of like we're at a point where in the adaptations of comic books have to be treated a certain way, otherwise people don't respect them. And it's like, I do think that Legends of Tomorrow, that's the title, right? I do think it's kind of like a corny show, but I watched Wonder Woman and The Incredible Hulk when I was a kid. So,
Yeah. I mean, even original Batman, as good as it is,
right.
It was cheeseball.
Yeah, exactly. But the unfortunate thing is this show exists alongside shows like Daredevil.
Right. Oh,
or, just other shows that are
yeah.
They have a whole different.
There's so many superhero shows now, whether DC or Marvel, that this is a scraping bottom of the barrel,
right,
for what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, what could help it is if this apparently they're rebooting The Tick. I don't know if they're rebooting it as a film or a TV show.
I don't know.
But I was never really a huge fan of The Tick, honestly.
I watched the cartoon.
I saw a couple episodes of the live action show, and it was okay or whatever. But
Patrick Warburton, right?
Right. Who else? Ron Perlman was in that too.
Really?
Before he played Hellboy, he was like I forget his character's name, but he was some fire-based superhero. But I mean, I was familiar with it to some degree because it had been a comic book before, and I feel like it was a cartoon before it was a TV show, like a live action show.
It was a cartoon before live action. I'm pretty sure.
Wouldn't surprise me. But this is just kind of random, but I was just thinking of it too. But
that's the theme of this show, apparently.
Exactly. I saw a video about the differences between The Mask, the film, and the comic books that it was based on.
Okay, The Mask, the Jim Carrey. Okay.
Right. And not Mask.
Well, of course, I went right to, they're...
But it was apparently... I mean, I didn't read the comic book when I was a kid because a lot of the comic shops that were in my available area were more so leaning towards like X-Men. I got into comic books in the 90s, so it was all, hollow foil covers and stuff like that. That's not to say that I didn't have some creator-owned comic books, like I had some Ninja Turtles comics, and for some reason I had Zen the Intergalactic Ninja, which was corny as hell, but it's all sort of, I think, kind of part of the same universe in some way or another. But I never really got into the Mask comic books, and I had some inkling that, it probably was more extreme than it was represented in the films. Because that's usually how it works.
Of course.
You gotta water stuff down, you gotta make it less graphic, and, But, it was, like, way more graphic. It was, like, and the differences are huge. Like, the character just dies halfway through the comic book. Like, he gets killed.
Okay.
It's like, okay. And someone else takes over, takes the mask and such, but, I think 2 of the books came out before the movie was made, and then some other books came after it, and the ones that came after the movie were like so clearly influenced by the film. Things were not nearly as violent, and it was more like slapstick and Looney Tunes. I mean, it was always built into the character anyway to kind of warp reality, so to speak, and almost break the fourth wall. But it just went crazy over the top after the movie came out. It's a movie I haven't seen in a long time either, and I'm sure it probably doesn't age all that well.
Yeah.
Special effects included.
I think if nothing else, that'd be the killer.
Yeah. Although I say that, and then the special effects probably... I mean, you have to give it a little bit of leeway because it's meant to be cartoony. Like, it's not meant to be super realistic anyway, but, whatever.
It's kind of like the movie we were talking about, The Last Starfighter, we watched the other day.
Right.
And we're talking 80s TV, and, oh, look at all those computer graphics, which at the time were probably like, oh my god, those are amazing. But they are so... the polygons and like it looks like something directly off of a computer screen for like Space Quest or something like that. I mean, it holds up because at least it's still based on the video game. It looks like a video game, but yeah, that one holds up to some extent. It's a little rough.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie. We were talking about that last night. Yeah, I haven't seen that in a long time. But at first, I initially confused it with Enemy Mine for some reason. Because space.
Because space and there's
piloting.
There's 2 alien co-pilot things that look sort of the same.
Right. What was that other movie from the 80s? The other movie.
There's only 3.
There were 3 or 4 movies in the 80s that had aliens in them. It wasn't a big theme or anything. Flight of the Navigator, I think?
I remember Flight of the Navigator.
Was that a Disney film?
I think so.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that was...
That was the one where the spaceship comes to Earth.
And it's kind of like liquid metalish, how way the graphics work.
Yeah, when it goes into warp mode, it gets shinier. Mm-hmm. And it has it's got an artificial intelligence.
That looks like just like a robot arm with a head on it, or something like that, yeah.
But it's voiced by Paul Rubens. Who plays, everyone knows as Pee Wee Herman. But the funny thing about it is, you
might know him from such roles as
Pee-wee. You're the guy from the Hamburger Train guy from that one Cheech and Chong film. But no, his the AI on the ship. I don't know if it's the AI or the alien or whatnot. If the ship is considered a living being, I forget what the exact plot is, but. At one point, it's been monitoring Earth satellite transmissions, so it's been basically watching TV the whole time it's coming towards Earth.
Right.
And it's kind of driven it insane. So, it's just throwing out catchphrases from commercials and stuff like that, and it's just, pretty good casting for that kind of character. Get Paul Rubens to play that character. He's a...
little bipolar at times.
Right. And that reminds me that I asked you guys about this yesterday, if you'd seen this or not, the new Pee-wee's Playhouse, or not Pee-wee's Playhouse, but Pee-wee's Big Vacation.
No,
but yeah,
not yet.
It's okay. There's certain things about it that are really fun, and a lot of my friends went crazy when this movie was announced and when it was available the other day. Johnny was like, "Oh, I watched it twice in one night."
Okay.
I watched it once and I'm okay. It's alright. He looks amazing though. He still looks... I mean, the makeup... And
I'm sure he's been plastic.
Pretty sure he's wearing a piece and things like that, and he's had some work done over the years, but he looks pretty good for a guy his age. I mean...
Playing supposed adolescent.
Yeah, right. Forever teenage
unaged adult man-child.
Right. But that's a character that I think a lot of people misunderstand, because they think it's just a kid's show character.
Oh, no.
No, exactly.
I have this vague memory of... the live stage show version that they did.
It was on HBO or Showtime.
And they must have shown it on it. Yeah, it was on. It had to be HBO because we didn't have Showtime. But it was definitely not a kids thing.
Right.
And yeah.
And even when it was a kids thing,
there was enough. Yeah.
Just like any other kids, quote unquote, kids show, there's always stuff that's just hidden in there for the adults.
Absolutely. I mean, everywhere from Disney through everywhere else. I mean, you have to appeal to more than just the 7-year-olds who come to the audience. You gotta want adults to come in too. I mean, Elise and I being sort of those people who go in for all the different layers, but I mean, there's people who, I just have kids, so I want to take them to see the movie. But, I enjoyed it too because they did this joke, and little Johnny didn't get that. Little Johnny, why did I know that?
Right.
why that name came out. Well, they didn't get that joke, but I got it. Ha ha ha.
Yep.
Because that was hidden just for me.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But especially, like, with, Pee-wee and the people that wrote for the show and people who were involved and the comedy troupe he came out of in California, like people like Taylor Negron and Cassandra Peterson, a.k.a. Elvira, and... just the whole bunch of people that they've worked together on a number of different things. Like
Not Samuel L. Jackson.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne. He was on the show. I don't know how
he was. Yeah, I don't know if he was on that
involved
one.
with him beforehand, but they were like big, like pop culture junkies, and like they were kids in like late 50s or the 60s. So that was like so much entertainment was available in your house, and then like when they were kids, I mean, they had TV that was crazy.
Yeah.
And then as they're becoming adults, like you have however many channels on all the time on television. So yeah, there's all kinds of pop culture references here and there, and it's like some of them are going to be inappropriate. Kids aren't going to necessarily get them, but adults are going to be like, "Huh, that's weird. I never thought about that joke before." But that's I don't know.
It didn't win like so many like awards. The TV show.
Yeah, the TV show was huge. It was huge, and the funny thing is, like, people misremember the timeline. People are like, "Oh, Pee-wee's Playhouse. That's such a shame that he got arrested for what he did in that movie theater, and because of that he lost the TV show." And it's like,
nope,
the TV show was over.
Way over.
It was over, man. It had been over for a while. But I remember when I was a kid. It was in rerun, so they stopped rerunning at that point. I remember when I was a kid, there was actually like kind of I don't know how big of a controversy it was, but in like one episode, Pee-wee tried to like, without saying it, Pee-wee was like trying to tell kids like, to not allow adults to abuse them, quote unquote, like, and, like to guard them against child predators and things like that. And one of the things in one episode, he like looked at the camera and told kids, if an adult tells you to do something and you don't want to do it, don't do it. And, like, people misunderstood that, and they thought it was, like, Pee-wee basically teaching kids to be disobedient. And it was like...
he's breeding an anarchy.
Yeah, right. It's like, what's he going to do? Like, release the secret message and all the kids are going to rise up. Like, not really what he was going for, I don't think.
Baby Terminators.
But, maybe he could have worded it better. I don't know, whatever.
It was an attempt.
Yeah, I don't know. But, yeah, I love that show when I was a kid, and I meant to buy it on Blu-ray, because you can get the whole set, but... Around the same time it came out on Blu-ray, it came out on Netflix, too. So I was like, why spend all that money on it when I can just stream it immediately? Oh, well.
Speaking of 80s movies, I saw earlier today through Kickstarter a Goonies card game.
Really?
Yes. Now, the video... tells you nothing about how the game works.
Yeah, it's an appeal to nostalgia.
Oh, it's absolutely an appeal. Well, that's what a lot I've seen now. A lot on Kickstarter. There's a lot of that crap going on. Mega Man, which I supposedly is really a horrible game.
Really? Like a board game.
The board game,
I couldn't imagine that.
I saw a review, and no, apparently not so good. Like, it's one of those. Everyone's Mega Man. Huh? How's that work?
That's not right.
But there's that, and but it's a card game of some sort. They showed some of the cards, like, oh, that card has junk on it, and I'm like, I love that was a movie like as in my childhood, my group of friends. That was like, if a movie could be like a song that, or the movie's like a theme for your childhood. That was it. Me and the bunch of, and everyone like had a character that they were. I don't remember who I was.
Right.
But yeah, it was that, and I'm looking at this going, I hope that maybe they show some better stuff, and maybe it is worth something.
Yeah.
And I want to go, hey, Kickstarter, take my money. At the same time, I probably have better games to get in my life. Like
licensed games are a real crapshoot.
Yes, absolutely.
They're not always bad.
No, they're not. Well, I mean, you got not something that I'm going to play, but Battlestar Galactica.
I know people who love that game.
I mean, it's a long game, and it's all about having a trader within your midst, and people rave about the type of experience. But I also, for me, I don't want to play a 7-hour, 8-hour game.
That's absurd.
No, but it's a prime example that license works.
Yep.
There are a couple of the Lord of the Rings things out there. License works.
Yep, a few of them. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and we bought the Ghostbusters game, which pretty much is from what I have not finished reading the rulebook because it's very, very involved. We sat down one day, and after the first hour or so, Elise said, "So how much longer?" And I said, "I'm maybe a quarter way through it."
Wow.
And she's like, "Well, maybe that's not for today."
That's kind of crazy, though.
Yeah,
they would think that people who like licensed games. I mean, I'm not saying they should all be light, but
Right.
a licensed game. My idea of a good licensed game would be something that non-gamers could pick up and play.
I to an extent agree, but from what I know, also it seems like it's a version of Zombicide that's been
Rethemed.
like rethemed, skinned with the whole thing that you're building the grids and they've got different things and you're moving around and instead of killing zombies and trying to do something, you're trying to trap a ghost and bring it back to Ecto 1 and all that, which I'm sure I'll get into it, but there's a lot more people out there who are like, this is horrible. The coolest thing, though, is because the minis are pretty decent.
Right.
But the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man mini, which I'm holding my hands apart like
Right.
people
For the
listening.
podcast, for the listeners.
This visual medium. It's like 6 or 7 inches tall, or I mean, maybe 5.
Compared to like what, an inch.
Yeah, it's like an inch and a half. I mean,
right.
for a mini, I mean, if you throw this at someone, you probably knock them out the right way.
Jeez.
I mean, it's a piece of work.
Nice. Are they painted?
No.
Well, can't have everything.
No, and honestly, I would never trust myself to do it.
Yeah.
One time we play Mice and Mystics, another game, which cooperative, story driven. You go through chapters of a book. You're actually like supposedly playing through a storybook and the whole idea. And for Elise and I, love the game. We always end up getting through a few chapters, and then we get to a point where we can't play for a while, and we forget everything we've done. We're like, all right, well, we're going to start again. But the minis, again, very cool, very detailed. And the one time Elise said, you know what? Maybe I'll order. You can buy a second set of minis. She goes, I'll play around with painting them.
Yeah.
And then that idea left and went to, I don't think that's going to work.
How many minis are there in the game?
There are a lot of minis.
Yeah.
Because there's like 7 different mice that you can play as. Okay. And then there's roaches, because your bad guys have all been turned into, you're all mice and rats.
Right.
And you're all mice. The bad guys are all rats and insects and vermin. So there's a tarantula and a huge centipede and a bunch of different roaches and this and that and the other. I'm like, there's a lot of minis.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm not going to know. I can use my imagination.
Yep. Yeah, if you need to get a drink, feel free. I'll just I'll pause while you get
a little water.
Yeah, I'll hold. Keep talking. Actually, you were talking about the Goonies, and I always felt it because there was a Goonies video game for the NES, and then actually wait, no, was there a Goonies video game for the NES? I feel like what happened was there was the movie The Goonies, and then there was a Goonies 2 game, but I don't remember ever playing the Goonies video game.
Because I don't think they ever made a Goonies video game. I think it was only Goonies
Just
2.
Goonies 2, which is weird because there is no Goonies 2 movie.
Right.
Which was, a lot of kids were mad about that. They're like, well, I never saw Goonies 2. And then they're like, I can't find it. And there is no Goonies 2. And even as an adult, separate of the video game conversation, when I was working at a bookstore once, I had a friend who was talking about how much they loved the Goonies. And they were like, yeah, I always kind of wish they'd made another Goonies movie. And I said, have you ever seen Monster Party? And she was like, what the hell is Monster Party? I'm like, Monster Party is basically the Goonies with the Universal monsters. I mean, it's like the kids are practically identical. You know what I mean? Like
all the stereotypes.
There's the goofy kid. There's the and then just all of a sudden Dracula, the Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein just show up.
Is this the movie where Wolfman's got nards?
Wolfman does have nards. In this movie.
I don't remember the movie specifically, but of course I know of it now.
Right? Yeah, exactly. The other funny thing about that movie is the guy who played the Wolfman in that movie his name is John Grease, and he most people would recognize him as Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. I don't know if you ever saw that. But,
never saw Napoleon Dynamite.
He's a lot of people recognize him from that role, but he played the Wolfman in that movie, and then a couple years later, or maybe even the next year, they made a sequel to Fright Night. I don't know if you ever saw Fright Night.
No.
It's about this kid who's like a horror movie fan, and he stays up late watching horror movies on TV. And then one day, somebody starts moving into the house next door to him, and he feels like, or he thinks he saw somebody move a casket into the basement. But he might have he just woke up watching horror movies, so maybe it's like reality and his dream kind of melted together, so to speak, in that moment. But a couple years later, they made a sequel called Fright Night 2, which has a werewolf character in it, played by John Grease. So, like, for a while, he was just the werewolf guy. So it's just weird seeing him in both of those movies in basically the identical role.
Very specific typecasting.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, they saw him in this one. They saw him in a Monster Squad, and they're like, "This guy's the guy we want for this monster." So
there is some rumor floating around. I've read it that there is going to be a Goonies 2 coming out, and a lot of the rumors circulates around. Is it going to be just another set of kids?
Yeah.
Are they going to reboot it and do it again? Are they going to bring back the original cast, and the new kids are like the kids of the original cast because they are all still in Astoria, or as the rich guy said, Astoria.
They could do it as like a live. They could do it as a CGI animated feature, like Toy Story. You know, like the kids in Toy Story kind of thing, but like without toys, obviously. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's see what happens.
They should really fuck with people and just make a Goonies 2 and all the characters are girls. Just have everybody just lose their mind. Be like, why are you doing this to us again?
You're ruining my childhood.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't be women. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I hate people.
Yeah, that's ever since the new Star Wars film came out. That's been kind of like a thing that I've been I kind of go on about it too much. The whole concept of people who loved a film from like 20 years ago getting mad about a new film being different from what they remember, and it's like, I'm sorry, but this movie isn't for you. This movie is not for you. It's for a whole new generation of kids, and they're just happy if people who like the original might like it. But you're not the target audience.
Right.
You know?
Unless it's an actual reboot.
Right.
It's supposed to not be what you remember from as a child.
Yeah.
That was like you talking about Star Wars now. I mean, honestly, there was the hype behind coming to that movie was incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely beyond like anything else I've seen in quite some time. And I love the original trilogy.
Yeah.
I tolerate the newer trilogy they did after that. Unlike some other people who will deny its existence.
I'm not a fan. I don't like the
prequel
trilogy.
If I have a choice, I will not watch the prequels.
Right.
I will always watch 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6. I don't care. I own them all. Whatever.
Yeah.
However, if you expect everything to stay the exact same way,
right,
and if you expected also for that movie to change cinema forever,
yeah,
you were waiting for the wrong thing.
Right. Yeah, there's too much. At a certain point, certain things get so hyped that there's no possible way that they can fulfill that. It's just impossible.
I walked in that Thursday night that was the unofficial opening night because it was opening on Friday.
Right.
And I was more than happy with what I saw.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. There was nothing that really pissed me off, and I'm like, nothing I can remember right now that I was like, I really wish this, or I really wish that. Was it retreading some things that I've done in the past? Okay, yes.
Yes, totally.
Was there fan service throughout? Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not a bad thing.
Right.
And from here now, you're springboarding for the people who are jumping on new. You do have kids who maybe aren't so locked into what the original 6 movies were.
Right.
And they know Star Wars Rebels. They know Clone Wars. And it's a different thing, so it's not such a big thing. Oh, well, Starkiller Base is just a planet-sized Death Star.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is. But, okay.
Those kids don't know what the Death Star is.
Right, exactly. For them, it's, oh my god, that freaking planet has a gun in it, you know?
Yeah.
And it draws its energy from the star.
I mean, some kids do.
Right.
No,
okay.
Granted, some
absolutely.
kids that are huge. Some parents are huge Star Wars fans, and these kids have already seen all the movies.
Yes, absolutely.
They know them by heart, so they're going to be like, you could have a 6-year-old in the audience being like, "That's the same." That's granted. That's going to happen.
Right.
But like in today's climate, studios are scared.
Oh!
They don't want to spend money on a film that's going to flop.
Right.
So if you can tell them, well, built in, okay, so they should be a little more confident in Star Wars as a franchise.
Yes.
They should have a little more leeway, and they should be able to make a slightly more original film. But if a studio is scared, you can tell them, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to use this recognized pattern, this recognized formula for success, this previous film, and we're going to kind of remake it for a whole new generation. And then there's enough different about it so that people who like the original films are going to come to this, and yeah, they're going to see some similarities between this thing, and this character's patterned after this character, and this event is similar to this event. But there's enough there so that most everybody's going to be happy with it.
Right.
Unless they're just insufferable douchebags.
Well, and the problem the way I look at it is that if we look at all the movies, including those which we don't watch very often,
right.
You watch them, it is not about one time frame. This is about, generations and eras of history. And I almost look at it as this is those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
So there's echoes of the past,
Right.
but it's not the same exact thing. But okay, well, guess what? This Nazi-esque cult is starting up. Who everyone wears white, and they're the stormtroopers. And we have a huge planet that destroys other things. Well, okay,
Yeah.
it's coming back around.
Yep. It's the same way that we live in a time right now where there's a lot of hate and a lot of
Douchebags?
yeah. There's political movements that seek to make people manipulate people through fear, and this has already happened.
Yes.
This happened 80 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And we're doing it again.
Yes.
We're definitely on track for all this shit to happen again. And are there people sitting in the audience at these rallies going, "Ugh, I already saw this stupid rally before. This is stupid. Why are you remaking this whole political movement? This is bullshit." I don't know, man. And I always just sometimes people's criticisms, I get where they're coming from, but I don't know. Is it really that serious? Oh, they're gonna remake Ghostbusters and they're all chicks. So what?
And?
Yeah, big deal, man.
And?
When I was a kid, I remember, 15 years ago maybe, I was thinking, they could keep making Ghostbusters films forever. And they'd be franchises.
Right.
And I feel like that was an idea at some point. There was a pitch maybe, or somebody said, maybe we're going to make a new Ghostbusters film, and here's the premise, because they're a business. You could franchise it, and I think they might have even touched on that in the second film.
They might have. I haven't watched the second film recently.
Yeah.
Just because it's still not as good as the
Not
first.
as good, no.
But, it's not horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sounds somewhat familiar.
Yeah, I feel like there's maybe a pitch or a treatment or something, or a rumor that there was going to be a sequel, or maybe they touched on it in cartoons, or I don't know, but it's a very obvious thing to do.
Oh yeah, because if there are ghosts in New York City, there's going to be ghosts
other
in
places, and they can't
Los
go
Angeles,
there. Yeah,
right? There's only 4 guys,
right? I wonder if there has ever been a really, really decent bootleg Ghostbusters movie. I'm sure that there's. There were a lot of in Hong Kong, a lot of martial arts films with ghosts in them and stuff like that in the 80s, and I have to believe that there's at least one Ghostbusters knockoff out there.
You would
with
think.
ninjas in it and stuff. Gotta be.
Ghost ninjas.
Yeah, right. It's gonna be part of the Mr. Vampire series. I love those films. They're really goofy, but they're just some of them are more serious than others, and then some of them are really bad. But it's got a lot of Taoist magic in it and stuff, and Qianshi, which are these kind of hopping vampire ghost characters and stuff. And one of them, there has to be a Ghostbusters knockoff somewhere in that series. I should look into it, but yeah.
It was one of the other things about the Star Wars films too, were the idiots. Why is the new Luke Skywalker got to be a girl? Going back to the same thing with the Ghostbusters, and also for the longest time. Obviously at this point, if you've not watched Star Wars and you're listening to us, you're spoiled. You're an idiot.
Yeah. I don't feel sorry for you at all.
Right, at this point, like, if you don't see a movie within a timely manner, and then you listen
not going to see it.
and you listen to me, and it's coming out on DVD in a couple weeks.
Yeah, right.
If you haven't seen it in a timely manner, you deserve to be spoiled to some extent. So take it for what it is. Yeah. But like everything was pointing to Finn's character is the new Jedi.
Yeah.
And up till the point where the movie came out, everyone's like, it's a black dude.
Yeah, like, so?
Right, I'm like, again?
And
really?
people are like, oh, this is the only black guy who's ever been shown in the Star Wars universe. And it's like, what? Are you serious right now? You don't remember Lando Calrissian? Like, come on, man.
People are not smart.
No.
Well, there's only, I think, because the movie poster came out, and then the Chinese version of the movie poster, they either completely removed Finn, or they shrunk him down behind, and everyone's like freaking out like on that. This world is fucked up, man.
Different countries have different ideas about.
I know, but you know what? I'm sure there are people in this country who are going, "Yeah, go it on you."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No.
Speaking of political movements,
I agree. People like that, man. Yeah, I don't get it. And people, like. I remember people complaining about that too, and just being like, I'm going to boycott this movie entirely because I don't appreciate these characters or the way they're being portrayed and blah, 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 blah. Whatever, man.
It's like, would you rather Jar Jar Binks back?
Yeah, right? Misa this and that.
Yeah, Misa back!
No. The one thing that I mean, when we first got out of the theater, my wife Liz was very, very displeased with the experience.
Right. I remember hearing this, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Like, she was super mad.
She was
about that
butthurt,
movie. Real bad. And she's a far bigger Star Wars fan than I am. Like, I saw the movies when I was a kid, and I thought they were great and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I was like, between the 3 movies, that is less than 6 hours of entertainment. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with them, but they don't blow my mind. It's not like... And they did a good job of developing a universe. You feel like there's a whole world there. So there's all kinds of things to wonder about and characters to flesh out in maybe even non-canon novelizations on the side and stuff like that. And plenty of toys. I mean, they merchandised the hell out of that movie. But I was always more a fan of Doctor Who. And even Star Trek, to a lesser extent, because there's just so much more of it. Yeah. As far as on screen, just being able to sit down and just watch it. She was pretty mad about the way that movie came out, and then, like I say, over time, she's definitely softened on it, and I feel like certain complaints that not necessarily just she had, but some other people have had about the movie, I thought were kind of weird, even at the time. I was like, I kind of see where they're coming from with complaining about Phasma. Like, Phasma was this cool-looking character. She's like, she's silver, vacuum-formed stormtrooper outfit kind of thing going on. And, hey, she's a female character. You can't really tell.
Well, there's the first thing. Yeah.
You only hear her talk like twice in the movie. Mm-hmm. And then she literally gets disposed of pretty quick. She's just there, and then she's out.
Yeah.
But, like, we know this is part 1 of a 3-part series. I'm sure you're going to be like, oh, okay.
Oh,
there's more to this character.
She did that for a reason.
Right, yeah, exactly. Right. And people were like, oh, she just turned over and did exactly what they wanted her to in that moment. It's like, well, in this film, we already have a character. One of the main characters is a guy who's seen the error of his ways and thinks that maybe the Force or the group he's been aligned to is not doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And he's chosen to just immediately, abandon them and work against them. Like, who's to say that she's not of the same thinking, and her idea is, I'm going to stay with them, but work against them at the same time, like, from the inside out. I mean, who knows why she did what she did.
And the other thing is, too, is, like, we also, how do we know, I think it was in the original, New Hope, when the Millennium Falcon gets away from the Death Star. What do? They cut to Vader and I guess it was Grand Moff Tarkin, and he says, are they away? Did you get the homing beacon on them? The Empire, and at this point the First Order, is a bunch of sneaky, conniving secrets. So how do we know there's not another plan going on there?
She may have been doing that. She has. It's not like she we get to hear her internal monologue, or she tells us why she did that in that scene, or anything like that. Like, just because you think you know why she did it, you should be asking yourself, what could her possible reasons for doing that
Right.
be? Like, not just,
Movies,
she just did that.
The thing is that movies now, compared to when the original trilogy came out, are deeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to remember that when you're watching it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's more to it. There's got to be more to it. And and Liz said it, but I'd heard it elsewhere, was the whole, didn't feel like a whole movie.
It's the first part. Yeah, no.
Right. It's not your full story. It's going to be part of a trilogy. It's an ongoing story. It's not always going to have an ending.
Yeah.
I mean, did you watch the Lord of the Rings movies?
A little bit, but no, I've never been a big Lord of the Rings fan.
I wasn't until Elise. Elise did a lot of this nerdiness to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was really cool before
you
I met
blame it
her.
on your wife?
No, not at all. I really don't. I was a nerd well before she got involved. But we went to see Lord of the Rings, the first one, Fellowship of the Ring. Mm-hmm. No, I had not read the books. She had read the books. And we're both seeing this on from different sides of interpretation.
Right.
And it gets to the end, and I thought it was really well done. It was a great story, and I see how they had to end it and what they did. And there's these two idiots behind us go, "You call that the ending? No, you call that an ending?" And if you know the story, you know it continues. And just me not having read the book, I turned to Elise and just said, "No, that's more of a beginning."
Right.
I mean, honestly, that entire 3.5 hours that first movie was getting us ready for the journey.
Right.
This was all set up. Mm-hmm. So you came to see a movie, you need to know a little bit about what's going on.
Right. Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of some of the Lord of the Rings films, and I'm familiar with some of the lore and things like that. I think I saw The Hobbit, the animated film, when I was a kid.
Oh, I love that.
And, stuff like that, related media. Mm-hmm. But what I did see, and I forgot that I saw this much of it, was I think I saw the first and the second Hobbit films in the theater. I remembered seeing the first one, and just thought that was it. That's all I saw. And then Liz and I were talking about it, and talking about how bullshit the whole Legolas running up falling blocks thing was. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, I can't believe that. And she was like, that was in the second film. And I was like, no, it was in the first one. I didn't see the second film. And she was like, no, it was in the second movie. So I don't think I saw the third one, but I probably did. Who knows?
We only saw the first one.
Yeah, right?
So, I mean...
but, yeah, I felt bad I didn't really feel bad, but at the end of the first film, there are certain things that if you know the movie's going to be a trilogy, that don't really work. Like, I didn't feel like there was any peril towards the end of the movie where, like, all this stuff is happening and, like, you're like, maybe some of the characters could die. It's like, they're not going to die.
Right.
Like, it's like when you watch a TV show and there's, like, a cliffhanger, and you're like, this character looks like they might have, like, a Doctor Who cliffhanger where, like, oh, looks like the Doctor died at the end of this episode. But, like, at the beginning of the next episode, like, immediately he's just pulled out of danger. I mean, it's like, he's not really going to die.
Right.
It's not going to happen. Even though it's a show where you know he could at any time and another person's going to step into the role. But, yeah, I felt that was kind of like they could have done something different. But it's a series. You know there are going to be 3 films. Yes. So it's a journey and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But I was not really a big fan of the Hobbit films. I guess I didn't see the third one, but I'm sure that somebody could be like, well, did you see this scene? And I'd be like, oh yeah, I did see that. Oh, you saw all 3 of the movies. I wouldn't remember.
You're like, okay, I guess it all faded together. I mean, and that's it. I mean, the thing that killed me about there was a trilogy. Mm-hmm. It was a short story.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, the Lord of the Rings was a trilogy.
Right.
It was a massive set of 3 full books.
Yeah.
The Hobbit is considered a short story in comparison, or at least a novella or something smaller. And they spread that out.
How many Harry Potter films were there? 8?
There were 8 because there were 7 books.
Right. And they split the last one.
They split the last one because there was so much in that one, the book, that they did not want to let... Because, I mean, that's tying everything up. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I love that, like, when something like Harry Potter, or any of these, like... Lord of the Rings, after the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, people would be like, well, there will be no more Lord of the Rings movies, but then they like Hobbit movies.
Right.
Or like Harry Potter. They're like, well, that's it for the Harry Potter movies. And they're like, well, we're going to do more Harry Potter movies because there's other side stories we can do. And it's like...
Because the new one is about one of the textbooks.
Is it really?
Yeah, well, there was Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Right.
And it's about the guy who wrote that book.
That's right. Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
So, it's Harry Potter-ish.
Yep, it's in the universe. And then, like, with the new Star Wars films, we're not just going to get 3 new films.
Well, that's why they're not numbering them anymore.
Oh, yeah?
Because from what that's why it was not Episode 7.
Oh, right.
They just call it Star Wars The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Because when they announced it, they just literally said that we plan on releasing the main story every other year and anthology stories in the filler years. Yeah. And they say for episode, and I believe Bob Iger announced it, saying that it's going to be episode 7, 8, and 9 and beyond.
Right.
Saying we're just going to keep making them if the story's working and people are coming.
Studios will do that.
I'll do I'll watch Star Wars till I die.
As long as they get more money back than they put into making the movie, they'll keep doing that.
And from what I understand, I think I was listening to another podcast. Gasp!
What?
How dare I? This is the only podcast in the world.
Yeah, you should be just waiting to record an episode so you can listen to it. Jeez.
And they were interviewing J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
And I believe part of what they were talking, this is my memory from like a week or so ago, that they spent $400 million to make the movie.
Sounds about right.
But so if that's the case, I mean, they made a lot, but they spent more to advertise for it. It was like 450 or 500 million to do the advertising. But even at that, let's say they spent $900 million before the first person saw the movie.
Right.
They more than doubled.
Yeah.
Worldwide. Yeah. And the DVDs are about to come out.
Yeah.
I mean, I will be buying that the first day it comes out because I want to have it and I want to watch it again.
Right.
Put on 3D glasses and experience it one more time.
That's true, right? You've got the whole setup for 3D. Yep. You know what I haven't picked up on Blu-ray? Speaking of picking things up, I haven't picked up Mad Max Fury Road because I haven't found anybody who's selling a steelbook. Huh. And I kind of feel like that movie would be good for a steelbook. It just kind of fits. We were at Walmart the other day, and they had a bunch of steelbooks, but like some of them didn't really feel like a movie that deserves a steelbook, or it's not. It doesn't always have to be thematic, but Chappie, that was a perfect movie to be a steelbook because he's a robot.
Okay.
Or I have a DVD steelbook of RoboCop.
Right.
I mean, so it doesn't always have to be there's a robot in the movie, or movies that are like action films, but they just have. I forget what they had that was in steelbook, but it was just goofy. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to have Fury Road in a steelbook. That'd be really cool. I feel like I own...
There's mine.
Alright, we got... I feel like I do own Pacific Rim, but I didn't get it in the steelbook, because I don't think anybody released a steelbook. And the unfortunate thing is, steelbooks aren't always released in the U.S., so sometimes, for anyone who's not aware, steelbook is just like a quote-unquote premium format for DVD and Blu-ray releases, where it's just the box is not plastic, it's made out of metal. And there are some non-legit steelbooks that are called metal packs and things like that are kind of goofier, but it's just kind of nice because the artwork is all over. It's just all over the whole case.
Yeah.
Whereas with the standard Blu-ray case, it's there's artwork, and then there's a blue bar on the top, and then even Criterion does their own type of Blu-ray package where the art goes all the way to the edges, but it's still a plastic case, but I don't know. It's a thing that I get into. I actually just recently made more room on my shelf for more Blu-rays. Yeah. I had my Doctor Who's all kind of spaced out with some of them facing out because they're box sets, but I was like, sorry, you gotta make room for expansion, bros. But so I wanted to get Fury Road, because I like that movie. Did you guys see Fury Road?
Nope.
It's pretty good. I don't know if you're a fan of the Mad Max films at all.
I can't remember if I've seen any or any.
Really?
I mean, I have flashes in my memory I'm thinking of, and I can picture bits and pieces, but I don't know if that's because I saw a commercial or even the movie. And to tell you the truth, I probably didn't actually see them.
Yeah. The first one, Road Warriors, is almost like an exploitation film.
Uh-huh.
It's shot in Australia, and there's this whole kind of subgenre of exploitation films called Ausploitation, which are either films that like exploit just the difference in culture and like the atmosphere of being very like lawless and almost old westy kind of thing, but so the first one's pretty good, and the second one is not bad. The third one is so-so because it was a proven franchise at that point, so it's like they got Tina Turner's in the movie, and
that was Thunderdome?
Yes, exactly. So it gets a little... Actually, was that part 2? I don't know. I get them kind of mixed up because they do feel very similar. They filmed them kind of in a good way that way. But, the fourth film, Fury Road, is, you got a whole new character. So I know some people don't really necessarily want to go out and buy or support the original trilogy because they're not huge Mel Gibson fans for some of the stuff he's said and done, which I completely agree with. I think I bought all of mine secondhand or whatever. But the Fury Road was actually really good for what it was. It was admittedly overhyped. People who went and saw it, and then the next day they're all over Facebook posting GIFs and going crazy on Tumblr for it, and everything in their whole life is Mad Max all of a sudden. It's like corny. And there were certain things about it that are really goofy, like having a truck that has music for everyone else who's in your convoy to keep everybody hyped up, and there's a guitarist who has a flamethrower in his guitar and stuff. It's like, it's way over the top, but for what it is, it works really well.
Right.
So I actually wanted to get that one, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. What else didn't I get that I wanted to get? I don't know. I can't remember. I saw some good films in 2015, and we didn't talk about this in the last episode, but Liz and I went and saw, because our local theater, and I think the whole chain, the AMC theater chain, has lowered their ticket prices to like $6. So $6 for regular and $8 for 3D, I think. And then you get like, I don't know if they're doing this constantly, but with your ticket you get like a free small drink. When a theater small is like, like a regular bottle of soda. So it's actually not small at all.
So I don't get like a vat of Diet Coke. Yeah,
and you get like free popcorn. We both just passed on the popcorn. But we went to see The Witch. Because I heard all these great things about it. And that was another situation where it was pretty well overhyped. It wasn't a bad movie, but like, kind of going into it, I expected it to be almost like... And I can't put myself in that position, like how crazy it would have been to have been seeing The Exorcist in theaters when it first came out.
Right.
But like, you hear so much about like people passing out in the theaters and like, it was banned in these countries and stuff like that. And I'm not saying people were saying stuff like that about The Witch, but they were saying like this is a huge, moment for horror, at least this year, and it was okay. It was good and everything like that, but like it was way more. It wasn't really subtle either, but it was just not as in your face and like, I don't know, kind of at loss for the word I'm looking for, but. And to a certain extent, that was good for it too, because it's not one of these movies where it has jump scares and like. Some, there were not really monsters in the movie. They're just like things that happen and creepy things. It was a good movie. It was all right and everything like that. But there was something about it that just kind of like didn't really hit me the way I thought it was going to, and it was basically because of the hype.
Yeah.
People had like my expectations were too high. And another thing is I've seen so many goddamn horror movies that. The average... I'm not saying like I'm in some higher echelon of film fandom or anything like that, but like the average film goer would go see this movie and be like, holy shit, that was the best thing I've seen since The Exorcist. Or Rosemary's Baby, or, something, these similar themes going on in it. But, it wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen, but it wasn't the best horror movie I've ever seen either. It could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse. Could have been like one of these.
I can't think of the last time I actually went to a movie in the theater and walked out going, boy, that was shit. Very rarely. I think... Do you ever see 12 Monkeys in the theater?
I didn't see it in the theaters, no.
Okay. I think that was like the closest. I was just like, what did I just waste my time on?
Right.
Like, it was just so like, what? That's the... What?
Have you seen it since, though?
No.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it was like, I I don't really care about it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what made us go see that movie, because it was... Usually, we're not big horror people.
Right.
It's much more anything within the comedy realm that doesn't go too far.
Well, it was Terry Gilliam, that's why. Mm-hmm. Terry Gilliam of Monty Python fame. That's why I went to see it.
Oh, that was it completely. Yes, and I always I think maybe that might have been hype too, but of course that's an old movie, so it's not like Twitter and Facebook were screaming about it.
Right. Yeah.
But honestly, I'm not a theater person. I hate people in a movie theater who are just like, they sit behind you and instead of being really careful and quiet about opening their stuff, they're it's like, really? Uh-huh. Or talking like they don't know how to whisper.
Yeah.
Or like
just their timing.
Right. Just
like things get really quiet and they want to start like what just happened? It's like, shut... I'm trying to figure out what's happening right now.
Yeah.
You're like 5 seconds behind. Like, shut up.
Can you please do me a favor? Next time it's loud on screen, that's when you can open your snow caps.
Yeah, right.
Really?
Exactly.
I'm
trying to think of the last time I went to see something that I thought was like really bad. I don't know.
So that's my point while you're thinking that is that usually it's something that I know I'm going to like.
Yeah.
Like just your theater here is much closer to you. Mm-hmm. We have a theater that is very literally, we get in our car, in our driveway, and we will be in the parking spot at the theater in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right up the road.
Mm-hmm.
So we go there, and it's not that ridiculously expensive, but we go in there, you buy 2 tickets for a 3D movie, and we get popcorn, and we get, sodas or whatever. We're looking at quite an investment.
Yep.
So that's the other thing, too. We think sometimes, do we really want to spend that money on that movie? I mean, for us, there's certain things. Obviously, anything that's, Star Wars, we're going to go see. Mm-hmm. For us, anything Disney Pixar, we're going to go see.
Yeah.
With very few exceptions. Like, we actually never made it out to see The Good Dinosaur because it's during marching band season. Yeah. Yes, if I wasn't enough of a nerd already, we teach marching band. Yes. So, shut up. So I think that's where I'm lucky in terms of that. We haven't had that much of a waste in terms of going to a theater.
Right.
But, yeah.
I think probably the last movie I went to see that I didn't really hate it, was probably Jurassic World. But that was mostly just because, I don't know, and it's funny because we were just talking about how Star Wars was just kind of like taking the template of the previous films and repeating it for a new generation. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what Jurassic World did.
Right.
But, whatever. I don't know, there wasn't enough new about it that was that exciting. And I feel like they might have banked a little too much on Chris Pratt. Hey, you loved Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, and he's great on The Office, the U.S., all these other things that he does. So, but, I don't know. It was okay and everything. And the special effects are greatly improved to some extent. I don't really know. I should look into it and find out how much of the effects work was practical. Because a lot of the effect work on the original film was practical.
Yes. And on the original film, the stuff that is CG holds up really well.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Quite a set of shoes to fill moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Did we talk about Deadpool last time?
We did, because I still haven't. We didn't end up going and seeing it.
Yeah, Deadpool was fun. I like that a lot.
I think that'll be one. I mean, because it's in the Marvel universe, we'll probably buy it and watch it.
Yeah,
because I'm sure it's not in the theaters anymore at this point.
No.
And at this point, I think we own every Marvel film, even though we haven't seen every Marvel film. So we'll end up doing it.
Mm-hmm. Somebody was just I don't know if it was on Facebook or I think it must have been on Facebook. Somebody was asking why Civil War is a Captain America film. Why is Civil War a Captain America film? And a couple people came in with some interesting, arguments for why it's a Captain America film. And then me being the jerk that I am,
oh no,
I have to be I have to basically reduce it to the easiest solution or the easiest answer. And I was just probably for contractual reasons. They're probably contractually obligated to make 3 Captain America films. And they're well, this is what we want to do next, and Captain America's in the storyline, so it's a Captain America film.
Yeah.
there might be a better reason for it to be a Captain America film, because it's not like a Captain America comic book, the whole Civil War storyline.
Yeah.
He's a huge part of it, obviously.
That's probably why, if nothing else. Either it's contractual, or if you look at the script, it's probably so much more just from his point of view.
Yeah.
And even though everything being shown shows all the other heroes,
yeah,
you're probably going to see Stark once or twice, and the Iron Man. You're probably going to see this hero once or twice. Ant-Man will probably show up just for like one scene. All these other characters. So it's like, oh, it looks huge, you know what I mean? And they'll probably all be there, but the movie will center. I mean, actually, okay, it's probably not as much. Iron Man and Tony Stark will probably be there because it's really between the two of them.
Right.
But it's probably going to be all about...
It could have just as easily have been an Avengers film.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's mostly the Avengers cast.
Everyone's saying it's Avengers Light.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a spin... You know, it's a point where all these other characters are going to spin off. You know, there's already going to be a Black Panther film, and then... the Captain America, is that a Marvel film? I forget if it's...
Yes.
Yeah, so this is like people were losing their shit because Spider-Man shows up in the trailer. Because Spider-Man up until this point had been Sony.
Yeah.
So this is the Marvel Spider-Man, who actually I think does look pretty good.
Oh yeah, everyone's losing their crap over...
His eyes?
Well, no, the outfit in general.
Oh yeah?
I just know, well, first of all, the eyes, yes.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, why are the eyes changing shape? Well, they do that in the comic book,
right.
and it's a comic book movie.
Nobody asked that about Deadpool,
right?
Like,
okay, and he was doing that in there. Okay,
yeah,
right.
Totally. Like his eyes are white, and then his eyelids move over his eyes. So
right.
Does he have contacts?
Right.
Nobody asks this about any other comic book movie. Like, why do they have comic books? Why do they have white eyes anyway?
Right.
Like, what's the point?
And I think like one person like zoomed in. Like, there's one person because they were talking also about saying that. I really hope that's not the finished costume because it looks perfect. It looks too fake.
It looks great, I thought.
Well, that's the next person like zoomed. They did like high res zoom ins of like first of all showing the eye at different points, showing that it actually the way it's animated it looks like shutters.
Yeah.
So okay, it's mechanical, so it's there's a reason. All right, we'll get beyond that.
Right.
But then it showed like zoom ins of like where like. Parts of his body were bending or whatever like that, and the detail and the folding, and you see the stitching and all that stuff. It's like, no, this is the finished one. Calm your...
Looks fine.
Yeah.
And this is like in a film universe where in the same film you're going to have a character who his entire suit of armor can fit into a briefcase.
Right.
Give me a fucking break. Any suit of armor that could fit into a briefcase would not be strong enough to withstand bullets. You know what I mean? Like,
well, maybe it's just a Time Lord.
Yeah, maybe. But it's just like... The things that people seem to want to pick out, and specifically with the eyes being, it's like Deadpool. Like just a couple months ago, Deadpool's eyes doing the same goddamn thing. That makes no sense for you to be like Spider-Man his eyes shouldn't do that. It's like, well, this isn't a documentary, right? Like,
this is fiction.
This is a movie, and that's a special effect. But actually, I was watching a video about that on YouTube about why superheroes have white eyes. Like, and just down to, is it just because it's the way people want to draw them? Like, and then it was even breaking it down to, like, on a meta level, like, is what we see on the panel actually what is real? Or is it just supposed to be, like, what people would see, like, psychologically, like Batman, for example, is that, like, a psychological thing? Like, people see him having white eyes because of the whole... Bat image, or is it just easy to draw? It looks better because some artists will, and they even in the video went back and forth and showed like some artists like to draw him with white eyes, some artists like to draw him with pupils. Just there's kind of no standard for it really,
right?
I think they discussed that it's never really been fully explained in the comic books as to whether or not he has like some kind of contact lens or if it's like a protective lens that goes over his whole eye or what, but. I think we're about to get interrupted by a wife. Just a moment here. Let me see. Okay, I thought my wife was coming home from work. She will be soon at some point, so we'll pause for that, and then I'll go make her lock herself in a room somewhere.
And then I'll have to pick up mine soon.
Yeah, right. She's been watching a lot of Showtime, because she has the Showtime add-on for Hulu. So she's got, like... For some reason, she'll be in the room just... the bedroom, just watching TV on her phone. And I'm like, why don't you just watch it on your laptop? And she'll be like, oh, I like watching it on a tiny screen. And I'm like,
wow,
what?
you are so strange.
What a weirdo. Like, I mean, I can kind of get with that, though, because when I was a kid, there's a certain novelty to playing games, like, on a handheld device and being like, this little tiny screen. But I don't know. Actually, I was thinking about getting a Game Boy Advance SP. That's one of the ones that like folds open. It just looks like a little square thing, like little. It looks like kind of like a little tiny laptop.
It looks like if a flip phone and a Game Boy had a baby.
Right, exactly. And when it's folded out, it kind of like simulates the experience of the original Game Boy because the screen is above your hands and all that. It's really the predecessor to the SP, which was wider and whatnot, but. I was thinking about getting one of those and then getting one of these flash carts because we have a flash cart for the N64 where you can put like all these ROMs on it. You can basically have every game ever released for a system on one of these things. And but it also has like an NES emulator, so I could be playing like Super Mario Brothers 2 on it if I wanted to, and do all kinds of nerdy stuff with it. So like I think all together it would end up. The funny thing is the handheld would cost me like $50. And then the cartridge would cost me like $70. But, that's not bad altogether, all put together. But then I don't really... The idea of it sounds cool. Like, that'd be fun to have. But then I don't know where I would use it. Like, maybe sometimes when I'm on the bus going to work or something.
Yeah.
But I'm on the bus going to work for like 15, 20 minutes. Twice a week.
So what are you going to get done, right?
Yeah,
what are you going to do in that game?
Yeah. It'd be fun, though. You never know. I haven't had a handheld game system in the longest time, unless you count, like... I mean, putting games on my phone or tablets and stuff like that. But I remember getting no, it's okay. I remember getting the Game Boy Advance when it first came out. It was weird because for a Nintendo console, the controls were on the left and the right of the screen, kind of like the Game Gear were.
Yeah.
So it seemed like a really strange evolution of the Nintendo handhelds.
Yeah, not a couple years ago, but like before we moved down here, because I just reversed.
You just moved from.
I just
Miami
moved directions.
Cuba?
Wow. Okay. But yeah, a handful of years ago, we bought those Game Boys. We both just went to a game shop and or a GameStop, and we're like, you know what?
Yeah.
We got 2 of those. We each had ours. We got a bunch of secondhand cartridges and. Sat there. We're playing games in the same room, not talking to each other.
Yeah, right.
It's great.
Well, initially, what I thought... I saw a video on YouTube that was about this Chinese knockoff called the Game Box Advance. So it was like the Game Boy SP, but it was just like some Chinese company made it. But the cool thing about it was like apparently the screen is a little bit better, and it has a micro SD slot on it, so you can just put stuff on a micro SD card and stick it inside, so you just bypass the need for a flash cart. But the unfortunate thing is, I guess it's there are 2 types of emulation. There's hardware emulation and software emulation. And hardware emulation is where like you make a knockoff system that operates just like the original system does. And then software emulation is where like you emulate it and put it on a chip. So like if you opened it, there's like hardly anything to the whole thing.
Right.
And if you do like the software emulation or on a chip emulation, you're going to come up with problems relating to compatibility. Like, these games aren't going to work because they require this specific technology. There was like a WarioWare game that was, I think it was called WarioWare Twisted, where there's like the cartridge sticks out and it's like got this huge gyroscope attached to it. So like all the games require you to like move the console, the handheld around to control it, and any of the software emulated consoles just don't do anything. Like they don't recognize like you play the game, like you can put it in. You can't really play the game, but you put the cartridge in and it runs, but like it doesn't register the movement of the gyroscope or the accelerometer or whatever it is that's in there that registers the movement. But so yeah, I was looking into that, and then I was like, no, that's probably not great. Maybe just get a regular, like, real legit one. Then the problem is you have to make sure that the person you're buying it from is selling you the right one, because the first run of the SPs aren't backlit. They're not lit at all. Like, they're just, you have to put, like, a light on them or use them under a light. And then the second revision, or the first revision, I should say, has, like, a backlight. And those are the ones that are more sought after, and they can be sometimes quite a bit more expensive. But, if you go to like a GameStop, they might just have them all in a big bucket together.
Yeah.
Just like, well, this one's the one I want.
I remember actually having the first Game Boy.
Yeah, me too.
And I remember that green and black screen, and I had whatever the screen lit. It was the layer thing you put on top. It wasn't actually the gooseneck light.
Right.
It was the thing that was a frame that went around it. And I remember how hard it still was to see anything with that stupid
Did
game.
you have like the whole thing that snapped around it? The whole like, was it just a screen?
It was. I think it was a partial screen. It didn't connect around the entire.
Because I don't know. Either myself or my brother or a friend of mine had this accessory for the Game Boy that like snapped on, like the whole Game Boy went inside this thing, and it had like the buttons. It had like a joystick that went over the D-pad, and like it had these weird like speakers that plugged into the headphone jack that like folded over the screen, but when you're using them you folded them out, so they like swung out like saloon doors. And so you had these speakers pointing at you, and they had like this ridiculous like screen light, screen magnifier in the middle of it. But it was so huge. I don't even. I can't remember if you had to use tools to put it on, like you had to screw it on the back or what.
Yikes.
It was nonsense. It was huge, and the Game Boy wasn't small in the first place.
Right,
like,
that was pretty beefy.
Right, people affectionately called it the brick, and then so you add this armor around this brick, so this thing is like 4 inches thick by the time you're done with it. It's ridiculous.
Oh my!
Yeah, I had the Game Boy, and I remember one time we lived in New Hampshire. For people who don't know, that's in America. And we had relatives who lived in Maine, and we went to visit them, and I just got this Game Boy, I think, for Christmas or a birthday party or something like that. And we went up, and I played it like the whole weekend, and, just was like, the average dick kid who's like all obsessed with this toy. And then when we were halfway home, I realized I don't have my Game Boy anymore.
Oh.
Like, where's my Game Boy? We had to drive all the way back to Maine and then come back. It was like...
Oh boy.
Yeah. I don't remember if my parents were just like, fuck it, we gotta go back and get it, or if I threw a fit or what, but we had to go back and get this Game Boy. I think actually what had happened was, it was my grandparents' vacation home, so they would have left too, so it was just like on a picnic table out in the, just out in the open, so we had to go back and get it. They couldn't, they were already gone. They weren't going to be able to send it to us or anything like that, so
right.
Fuck it, we gotta go back and get this Game Boy.
Yep.
My brother had, for some reason my brother always wanted to get these other brands that nobody knew about. Mm-hmm. We were a Nintendo household. We had the NES and the Super Nintendo and N64 later, and for some reason I had the Game Boy. He was like, I want to get this thing called the Atari Lynx.
I remember Lynx, never had it.
It was it's basically the same shape or same form factor as the Sega the Game Gear, because you had your controller, your controls to the left and right of the screen. But it was weird because the games were on these cards. It was thin. It wasn't like a cartridge, but then the end of the card was turned, so you had something to grab onto.
Right.
It's really weird. And then he had the TurboGrafx 16.
Oh my, yes.
Which was NEC. This Japanese company was their bid to try to get a foothold in the American market, which did not work well.
No.
But the thing about the NEC's consoles was interesting was that so you had their games were on cards as well. They were basically like a credit card, but 4 or 5 credit cards thick. They called them Hue cards, or turbo chips in the U.S. But that's a good idea, because then if your games are that size, you can use them on a handheld too. So they just released years later, after the TurboGrafx 16 came out. I forget what they called it in the U.S., but they had a handheld that was about the size of a Game Boy, just a little bit thicker, because it had a TV, it had a screen in it. Huh. Not like a cathode ray tube or anything like that, but that would be ridiculous. But yeah, it had a screen in it. And it was the whole console just shrunk down into the size of a handheld, so you could play the same exact games on the go. And of course they had a TV tuner. I don't think there was ever a TV tuner for the Game Boy because of the screen problem.
Yeah, the screen's
being just black and white, or being green and green.
Green and darker green.
But there was I think there was a TV tuner for the Genesis, but it was always just, who would want to watch TV on their handheld console.
Yeah, I had the Game Gear and I had the Genesis, but I never had that extra stuff.
Yeah.
It's always funny to me how the Game Gear was so good.
Yeah.
Compared to the Game Boy.
Right.
Full color, backlit, everything. But it still went nowhere, and the Game Boy is what stayed around. It's like, oh, why?
The problem I thought with the Genesis was that the batteries went really quickly because it was color. It would just eat through batteries so fast. I don't know if it was just a little too big for most kids' hands, because it was a bulky it was like, it wasn't much bigger than the Game Boy, but I felt like it was a little bit thicker. And then a lot of the games were like, you like Sega, you like Sonic the Hedgehog on your Sega Genesis. We have Sonic the Hedgehog on Game Gear. But it wasn't really as good as it was on the Game Gear as it was on the Genesis. But there were some good games on the Game Gear. And the funny thing about it is, like, the Game Gear was basically the Master System, the Sega Master System, like the system before the Genesis. Just they turned it into a handheld, because there was a thing called the Master Gear Converter, which was like this cartridge that you'd stick in the back of the Game Gear, and then it had another cartridge slot. It kind of like backpacked onto it that you could stick the Master System games into, and you could just play them. Like, it was kind of like apparently the software or the architecture was the same for the system. You just needed something to, like, physically make the cartridge communicate with the handheld.
Right.
So it was like, this kind of converter that you could use. You could also do that with the Genesis, too. There was a master base converter, I think they called it, for the Genesis. But yeah, so you had like all these other games that you could play, but it looked ridiculous because you had these like cartridges that were 4 or 5 inches wide,
right, and sticking off the back.
It's always goofy. Then they do that nowadays too. Like, all these companies make like handheld Super Nintendos and stuff like that. Like, the Super Nintendo cartridge is like not the biggest cartridge ever,
but
it's pretty big. It's not as big as the Nintendo cartridge, and they do make those too. They make like handheld Nintendos, and you have this huge cartridge sticking out the back of the thing.
Do you still have to blow into the...
Yeah, man.
God.
That's goofy as hell. That's so bad. Yep. So, yeah. You've been watching a lot of the Marvel stuff.
Well, we were doing all the DC stuff, and we
Oh, that's right, DC, I meant.
But the second season of Daredevil was put up on Netflix last week, and we started watching, and we're hopelessly stuck again. It's like,
how many episodes are you in now?
3 or 4. And it's funny because like it was all about Daredevil. The first season was pretty much Daredevil's origin story. He never really came out in the full red outfit until the final episode at the end.
Gotcha. Mostly like a black kind of.
He was just pretty much just honestly, he didn't even have a full hood. He was wearing what was pretty much like a full bandana that just came down over his nose and eyes.
Right.
And it wasn't until he somehow came into contact with a guy who made body armor that fabricated this thing for him. So it's like the red plating and everything like that. But now we've got Frank Castle.
Punisher, yeah.
Yeah. And it's their... I know... Well, I don't know this, but I understand he's really supposed to be more of an anti-hero.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because they really brought him in as a fucked up dude.
Yeah, because he in the comic books he started out. He wasn't really a villain, but like they presented him as though he was going to be a villain in a Spider-Man story.
Right.
So yeah, obviously he does a lot of stuff that most heroes wouldn't agree with.
Yeah.
He has no problem with just murdering people. Like, if killing you saves the lives of even one other person, he'll kill you.
Absolutely.
But usually the people he's killing are responsible for the deaths of hundreds, like kingpins and drug lords and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like we're at the point right now where he's about to go to trial. But they definitely, he was, blowing the hell out of everybody, and I should rephrase that. He was shooting the hell out of everybody.
Right.
And yeah, obviously he finally got, Daredevil helped catch him, and so he's going to trial, and now I don't know where they're going to twist it from there. That's pretty much where we're at, where he's going to be going in, and is he going to get released because of the reasonings about why he did what he did,
right,
or does what he does?
Have you seen any of the Punisher films?
No.
I haven't seen any of the newer ones. The one that came out, I don't know, a while back now, with Thomas Jane as the Punisher. I didn't really hear any great things about it at the time. But there was like one that came out a couple years later that was more... And they had a completely different actor playing him. It wasn't even supposed to be a sequel to the previous film. It was just like a... I think it was called like Punisher War Journal or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was supposed to be pretty good. But back in the 80s, there was a Dolph Lundgren Punisher film where he didn't have like the skull logo on his chest or anything, but it was the same basic story.
Right.
The mafia killed his family and he was coming back to get vengeance on him, and a lot of people hate it. I think it's a canon film, so it was like one of those movies that was just like shot on the cheap and just like hurry up and release it kind of thing.
Right. As of right now, this Punisher hasn't had the skull. He's just pretty much, they kept him as the paramilitary version of Daredevil. But the interesting thing is, the head of the Irish Mafia in this is the actor who played Vincent Van Gogh in Doctor Who.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it's really kind of weird seeing this sympathetic character suddenly like taking a drill,
right,
and like torturing the Punisher. It's like, oh, Vincent, you've gone bad.
Right. Well, and I forget his name too, but the guy who plays the Punisher in the series he was one of the male leads from The Walking Dead. From earlier in the series.
And this is, I don't know Walking Dead, so...
Yeah. I think he was like one of the male leads in like the first 2 seasons or so, but when it was announced, everybody was like, oh, it's him! Yeah, that's great! But yeah, that was pretty good. Oh, and I've been watching, we talked a little bit last episode about 11/22/63.
Yes.
That's been ongoing, and that's still pretty good. It's gotten weirder in certain ways. I told you the basic story. It's about a guy who goes back to 60 a couple years early to find out who the actual players are, and I feel like they do weird things where like he starts getting emotionally invested with people in the world that he's in, and like trying to start this relationship with this woman. And I don't know if the character doesn't really. There's not really any sort of explanation as to what he thinks is going to happen after he does whatever he thinks he's going to do to stop this from happening. Like, is he going to go back to present time and leave her? Because there's no indication that he can bring people into the future with him. And there's not really any explanation as to what he thinks could happen to the world if Kennedy isn't killed. Like, if he thinks it's, like, if people are involved in trying to kill Kennedy, are they just going to try as soon as he leaves? Like, are there going to be multiple future attempts on Kennedy's life until they kill him? They are starting to play around with, like, the causality of him being there, like, possibly, like, he kind of gets this other person from 1960s to help him out. He tells him that he's from the future, and you have to help me out with this whole thing. And at one point, he's kind of rubbed him the wrong way, and he starts getting buddy-buddy with Oswald. So it's like, he's like, oh shit, I think I just created the second shooter. So he does see that he's causing ripples and stuff like that.
Right.
I don't know what he thinks is happening. And then, like, a mysterious character shows up who is probably, like, the representation, like, physical representation of time trying to stop him from this, making this not happen. And
a Time Master.
Kind of, yeah, Time Master. And he's like this mysterious character who has a yellow card in his hat, like where people would have a press card kind of thing. And you're like, oh, I remember him from the first episode. He was the first person he saw when he stepped out. And like, I don't know. I didn't read the book, which I'm kind of glad about because I don't know where the series is going. The series could go in a not completely different direction, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't flesh it out and do different things with the story anyway, but I'm glad I didn't read the book because now, there's more mystery to it. Because this book I was actually just looking at my On This Day on Facebook the other day, and Brian from the Dark Side tweeted something, or not tweeted, messaged something to me about how in the book there's a whole section about how the world is split up into 2 types of people who do and people who don't like Moxie. And he said that to me like 4 years ago, and I was like, oh yeah, that book isn't as recent as I think it is. I mean, it's not like an old book or anything, but it's not like he just wrote it last year and they were like, immediately adapt it. But yeah, it's pretty good. And I don't remember how many episodes it's supposed to be. I should look into that and find out if it's supposed to be like 8 episodes or 10 episodes or... How many episodes is the usual season of Daredevil anyway?
I think, I want to say it's shorter than even a Doctor Who series season. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's all that long. Maybe 12.
Gotcha.
I'm not positive. The way we watch them, it's just going to be like another couple nights, and it'll be done.
Yeah, right.
But what are you going to do?
Yep.
You ever see the show Fringe?
I haven't, but it's what network was that on?
I don't recall, because it was completely one of those things that someone said, "Hey, you should check out Fringe."
I feel like it might have been on
watched it on
Sci-Fi.
Netflix. It was not Sci-Fi because what Sci-Fi does with some of their series is like, oh, they could not get away with that on network television. There was a show we watched on Sci-Fi called Dominion. We watched one season. We're like, all right, we don't need to watch any more of that.
Wait, is Dominion?
It's not based on the board game.
Is it based? is it like demons and stuff like that?
It's not demons. It's actually the angels turn on the humans.
Oh, okay.
And it becomes a human versus angel war.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Except for the Archangel Michael becomes kind of like goes against his own kind and helps protect. There's like just small pockets of humanity still left on the world, and he's in the one that happens to be in Las Vegas, which of course that's where they're holed up, right? And there was not one redeeming character in that episode, in that series, not one bit of redemption, except for like there's this one child who they kill. Oh, good, you killed the only likable person. Everyone's an asshole. But Fringe was, it's like there's a there's a branch of, say, the CIA or something like that investigates paranormal and unexplained fringe cases and things that they don't quite explain. It gets a little weird towards the end, but you remind me of Fringe because you're saying how there's this character who oh wait, I remember seeing him.
Gotcha.
They have a character because there's this, I guess, what humans become far in the future, who can kind of go back and I think they call them Watchers, or something like that. And
is his name Uatu?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
They all are wearing suits. They all are bald, and they all wear a fedora or something. They all have little to no emotion or feeling or like that. So the first time we meet this one Watcher, who it's funny because they'll show a flashback. I remember that you remember seeing him cross the street while something's happening here. You see him in the background there.
Gotcha.
So I remember that.
So they're based on the Men in Black phenomenon.
Sort of that type of
real,
thing.
Not the movie The Men in Black, but the paranormal Men in Black phenomenon.
One of the things they put out there to try and show that they are there's everything's dull and muted in them. The guy is eating food, and the guy asks for hot sauce. So not only does he pour I think he puts loads of black pepper on it, but he's just gushing hot sauce and eating dripping hot sauce, and people are looking at him and he's like, what? And it's very just
he needs that much to be able to taste it.
To taste anything. Yeah. So that's why I bring that up. That was an interesting one that it goes a little wonky into alternate universe type things.
Netflix or
it is on Netflix.
Netflix, yeah. Yeah, I'm obviously have to find something to watch this year with not having Doctor Who. So, yeah, there's plenty of stuff out there that I've just not gotten around to, but it's just going to be remembering to watch it.
Yeah.
But,
believe me, I understand that.
Yep. No Doctor Who this year, oh god! I was watching something the other day, it was just a Let's Play video where some people were playing a video game, and they just got to talking about Doctor Who for some reason. And one of the guys said, yeah, the new Doctor Who... He's one of the guys is I've never watched Doctor Who, and the other guy's maybe you'll watch it, you check it out sometime, and then he's but don't watch the new Doctor Who, because that new Doctor's terrible. And I was like, what? And he was I don't even feel like he's a very good actor. And I was like,
what?
Capaldi? Not a good actor?
Are you kidding?
Not a good doctor? I was like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Personal preferences aside and everything like that, but... When did this guy start watching Doctor Who? What is his basis for comparison that he thinks Capaldi's not a good doctor? What?
Or a good actor, for that matter.
Right? What have you seen him in?
You talk about anything from the new run of Doctor Who near here.
Right. It'd be like,
I mean,
my only other experience with him as an actor was he played a World Health Organization doctor in what is it, World War Z?
World War Z.
Yeah,
and
that was my only experience with him.
And wasn't he in Torchwood doing something too?
He was great in Torchwood though too. So I don't know what this guy's.
And he was an art dealer in Volcano Day.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The episode about Pompeii.
Episode, yeah.
I forget what it's
The Fires of Pompeii.
Yeah, there you go.
With Vesuvius? No, close.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so no Doctor Who this year. So we'll have
But there was a rumor that they've chosen a companion.
But they haven't said who it is.
Nope.
I always find those kinds of rumors.
It was
really
supposedly Capaldi said it.
Yeah, that's weird though.
I think he's just playing because yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, so what is the meat of this rumor? We've chosen a new companion,
but we're not telling you.
So later, if they haven't chosen a companion and later they choose a companion, they go, "This is the person we were talking about." Like, there's no meat to that.
I think the meat of it is probably someone realizing, well, we're not going to get Doctor Who for another year.
Keep people excited.
So we got to say something.
Yeah, like I know you don't follow modern wrestling, what's going on right now, but there's a wrestler who's just decided to not sign a new contract and he's leaving after his current run, and people were like, "Oh, that's fucked up." And then so a couple days later, there's another rumor that says someone else has chosen to do that too, but nobody knows who they are. It's like,
then what are you talking
yeah,
about?
just why don't you just wait until you have the information and then tell me about it later?
That's a nothing rumor right there.
Because now all it takes is someone else quitting, and then you can just be, oh, there's that person. That's the person they were talking about the whole time, and it's like, there's nothing to that. I don't get it.
Who is it that's supposedly leaving?
There's this wrestler named Wade Barrett, who has been kind of used off and on, and he's had a series of injuries. So
is he the taller guy with the weird accent?
Yeah, and he's got like a really bent nose.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and he's been
was he King Barrett? Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So, I haven't been like watching actively,
right,
but I've had this thing for watching videos on YouTube a little bit here and there, which show me stuff that I know.
Yeah.
But also a little bit of other stuff. So like I've been kind of watching a little bit what's going on with Shane McMahon coming back.
Oh yeah, that's kind of goofy.
It's goofy, but it's like it's funny. Like it's the first time I've actually seen the Undertaker. I'm like, wow, he really does look old.
He's very old. He's an old guy.
Oh my god,
I mean, he's not getting younger. Well, the goofy thing about that storyline in and of itself is that Shane had some good spot matches back in the late Attitude Era, early Ruthless Aggression era, where he would get into a fight with somebody and he had a great match with Kurt Angle where Kurt Angle suplexed him through a piece of plate glass.
Right.
Okay, so that was a good spot, and he had some matches where people he got thrown off of the Titantron and he fell 40 feet onto a set of mattresses, basically, so big spots, big, oh my god, I can't believe that shit happened moments and stuff like that. And, if The Undertaker threw Mankind off the top of the cell, so putting them together in a match makes sense, to some degree. Not really, but it kind of fits. But the storyline behind it is Shane wants to run Raw.
Yeah.
He wants to, which some people are saying is going to lead to another brand split where Raw is its own thing and has its own roster, and all the other SmackDown has its own roster, and maybe they go to War later on, or who knows what.
Yeah. This is the only modern wrestling storyline I actually have some clue what's going on.
Right. But the story behind it, why? Just because Vince says Shane has to wrestle Undertaker, why are they fighting? Because Vince says so. That doesn't make any sense. There's no psychological reason for The Undertaker to be fighting Shane. They haven't even done anything where Shane tries to get in The Undertaker's head necessarily. I mean, they've had a little...
I saw the thing where he referred to him as Vince's bitch.
Yeah, but come on.
I know.
That's nothing... I don't know. It seems like an afterthought, and it really is, because, I don't know who they were thinking of having face The Undertaker this year, but it's just this is a storyline that basically started a month ago. Mm-hmm. And usually WrestleMania planning is 2, 3, 4 months out.
Yes.
After Royal Rumble ends, you've got the road to WrestleMania started.
Mm-hmm.
So things start to coalesce, but just all of a sudden, Shane's back and he wants to fight for Raw, and I'm gonna just out of a hat just pick The Undertaker. It's not like Shane and The Undertaker had some storied history and they can put this great video package of all these, classic matches they've had together and just promo the hell out of it. But I don't know. It's goofy.
It's funny because actually just today it was a video. It was a couple videos about this thing that I had watched, and it was talking. It showed the whole thing of I watched Shane arrive for the first time, which was actually a pretty classic moment. The way that I think they did that very well with the 3 McMahons.
Yeah.
But the whole package with him training in the Muay Thai and all that other stuff, and then Undertaker saying this, that won't be enough, and not only that, and then there was the one moment where it was just Vince out saying that if the Undertaker loses, this will be his last WrestleMania. And I'm going to be very honest, not watching wrestling, and I've always could kind of see where things were going to go.
Yeah.
And I'm already seeing, okay, that's going to be Undertaker finally retiring.
Yeah.
He's not going to be, he wants to go out. Shane's going to win, so he can get he's going to get it Raw. He's going to get control of Raw because he's back, and everyone will think, because in that package, all the wrestlers are saying about how great it would be for Raw if he was there, so they're really trying to build him up. And I feel like it's going to be Undertaker is going to, not necessarily just lay down for Shane, but he's going to finally turn on Vince, because he's always been known as, Vince's, not lapdog, because that makes it sound worse, but he was always the one who was supportive of
loyal to the company.
Loyalty was weird.
Yeah,
he was loyal to the
90s.
company, loyal to Vince, loyal to never thought about shifting over, none of that. And it's just always been known that he's been loyal to it. And then he could just finally turn around and say, how could you do this? You're out. He's like, yes, I'm not loyal to you. I'm loyal to the company, and he's what's best for the company.
Fans.
That's what's going to happen. Yeah. So he's gonna get to go out big in front of his home state, right? It's going to be in Texas.
Yeah.
It's his home state. Mean Mark Callis and the Heart Punch.
Yeah, right.
I remember that. Oh, God.
Mean Mark Callis?
Yes. Yeah. And the Heart Punch. What do we do? Let's put our arm here and I'll punch a guy.
Him in the chest.
Okay, that's good.
Getting punched in the chest hurts you, don't you know?
Yeah.
Right in the heart.
Right in the heart. That's good.
You don't have a rib cage or anything.
Yeah, well, suspension of disbelief.
What?
There's none of that.
No,
wrestling is
dead.
real.
Yeah, right?
Kayfabe is dead.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, I mean, it's I from just watching a couple short videos over the course of half an hour.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
At least that's what I see it. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
I mean, they're making the best out of it they
Absolutely.
could have, maybe, but I don't know. It's really hard to say, without knowing or hearing a rumor about who the initial plan would have been for. Obviously, fans have been drooling for years for Undertaker, Sting, right? And then so Sting joins the company, and then he gets injured
right away.
And then pretty much right away, yeah, exactly. And then so for the last week or so, there have been all these rumors that Sting is retired. He's going into the Hall of Fame this year. So
right.
at the Hall of Fame ceremony the night before WrestleMania, there's all the speculation they'll be making his big retirement announcement and everything like that. But that was all coming from secondhand sources,
right?
And so there was a recent interview with Sting where they're like, so you're retired, and he's like, I never said I was retired. And they're like, well, but you have spinal stenosis, and he's like, yeah, I feel fine. But well, Stone Cold had spinal stenosis. It ended his career. Edge had spinal stenosis. It ended his career. All this stuff. And he's like, you go to one doctor, he'll tell you can never wrestle again. You go to another doctor, he'll tell you if you feel fine, you're fine.
Yeah.
So, and I guess one thing he said is one piece of advice he's gotten from everybody about this is don't go under the knife unless you absolutely have to. Because if they go in and fuse his neck, it's done.
Yeah, it's over.
You'll live fine. You'll have a decent life and everything like that, but you will never be able to wrestle again. So I don't know if the original plan was for it to be Sting at WrestleMania, because, like I say, fans have wanted that match. But I honestly don't know if, even at their peak, if the two of them would have had a great match anyway.
It's true.
They don't wrestle crazy, unique styles or anything like that. Undertaker wrestles a big man style. Sting wrestles like an energetic... not as energetic now as he was when he was younger, but they both wrestle pretty basic styles.
Yes.
They're not like, these guys who have, like you're saying, Muay Thai and, I don't know if you ever saw much of CM Punk's work, but, he had Muay Thai stuff in there.
Yeah.
And, Brock Lesnar has an MMA style, and all these guys who have these...
AJ Styles is got weird stuff too.
Yeah, AJ Styles does a lot of stuff like that. But yeah, he wrestles more like a high flyer style. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're very standard wrestling techniques. But
they were the two big names of the two big companies.
Yeah, the two guys who never jumped ship.
Right.
Basically. Through the 90s, they stuck with their company. Mm-hmm. But the thing is about booking the two of them together is that, and a lot of people have wanted it, is that it's pretty obvious. Like, these two dark characters, we should make them face off against each other.
Yes.
It's almost too obvious.
Yeah.
Just to be like, well, they should, obviously. Because, like, back in the 90s in WCW... the booking for, like, Sting and, I don't know if you remember a character named Vampiro.
Yes.
It was just guys who have face paint.
Right.
Every week we're going to have two guys with face paint wrestling each other. And it became like this, they even had I think there was a faction at the time called Brothers in Paint. And it's just so obvious.
That.
It's like, you have a creepy painted gimmick, we're going to put you in together. And it's too obvious to me. But, I mean, obviously if you give them reasons, if there's a storyline, anything can work, really.
Yeah.
But Sting does not look... I mean, neither one of them is a spring chicken. And
isn't Sting like 58 years old or something like that?
I don't know if he's 58, but he is not... He's in his 50s.
There was some video on YouTube. It was like oldest working wrestlers right now, and they went for like top 10.
Right.
And it was through everything, and it was like... Undertaker was number 2. I'm like, oh, he's old.
Yeah.
And then with the Sting, it's like it was upper 50s or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Like, oh my god!
But I mean, I would almost if they were going to have a Sting Undertaker match, I would almost rather Sting like surprise everybody and come out as like Surfer Sting. You know what I mean? But like
he doesn't have the hair anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, but if he got like a buzz cut. Like, maybe he could support it? I don't know. He can't even really support the hairstyle he has now.
It's true.
Honestly.
Yes.
He looks
more paint now.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw any clips of his match with Triple H. I don't know if it was at last WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. At the end of the match, he just, like, looked, I don't know, man. It was not.
He's got a super receding hairline.
And he's got, like, a big bald spot in the back. I mean, I do too, but...
Right, but little bits and pieces of makeup hanging off and stuff.
It's just like, yeah, man, I don't know.
It's funny because that went downhill real quick because I remember when he first came out as the Crow.
Yeah.
He was the Crow.
Right.
Let's be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
I just remember and looking back at that, like he was full head, big black hair. It's like now it's like wow.
Yeah. Even I mean, I love how WWE just pretends that there's not another national brand. So like when Sting came in and AJ Styles came in. Not so much with Sting. Like, they just said, like, Sting, you wrestled in WCW, and then you've been plying your trade elsewhere in the intervening years, yada yada.
Not bringing up TNA.
Not TNA, right? And then with, like, with AJ Styles, they're just like, yeah, so AJ Styles, if people might remember, you actually did wrestle in WCW towards the end of WCW, and then, you've plied your trade all over the world and in the Indies. And people were like, oh my god, they just called TNA the Indies. It's like... No, they were ignoring TNA. Yeah. Completely.
TNA is not quite the level of what WCW was.
Not even close. No. TNA is terrible. I don't understand how that company exists. But, I mean, I kind of do because they have a big company sort of backing them. But, yeah, it's not a brand I appreciate at all. We watch... So we don't even really watch Raw and SmackDown. We watch the main roster, quote-unquote main roster pay-per-views. Because we have the network. Mm-hmm. But weekly we watch TNA, or we watch, not TNA, we don't watch them. Weekly we watch NXT because it's like stars before their stars kind of thing.
Yep.
Which is kind of weird because now it isn't really stars before their stars, it's like just another brand.
Yeah, it's just kind of the young kids.
And it still is to a large extent a testing ground. Because some people who are really popular in NXT go to the main roster and it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Like, for whatever reason, it's just... I don't know if they don't have the correct foil or if it's just a gimmick that's not... It works better with a small audience or what the formula is, but it doesn't seem to work for some of the guys. But, so we watch NXT and their takeover specials, which are usually... they do like 4 a year, I think. And they're usually like a day or two before a big WWE pay-per-view. So like NXT TakeOver Dallas is a couple days before WrestleMania. And I'm sure there are going to be some great moments on WrestleMania, but like the NXT pay-per-views are usually way better. They're just people that most wrestling fans don't recognize.
Yeah.
So we watch NXT we do watch it every week. And then Lucha Underground is a really weird kind of wrestling program because it is a wrestling show, and it's only an hour long, like NXT is. Mm-hmm. But it has a season. Like, it runs for, I think the first season ran for like 39 episodes. And then, they're off for however many months. And it runs like a TV show. And they have like backstage segments that are shot like dramas. These look like, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul drama type shows. They'll have like, you find out what this character's about and stuff like that. And sometimes season 2 has been a little less fleshed out because the budget wasn't as big as it was in the first season. But it's an interesting show because they bring people in. I mean, the gimmick of the whole promotion is that it's supposed to be like Mexican wrestling. So some of the guys that work in the company aren't Mexican wrestlers, but they just gimmick them. Like there's a guy named Prince Puma who has been the Lucha Underground champion, and he's almost constantly a contender for the championship. But he's just a wrestler named Ricochet. He wrestles, all through the indie scene and here and there. But when he's in Lucha Underground, he's Prince Puma. But they have Vampiro as one of the announcers, and he actually wrestled a match last year. But some of the matches are like really, they get away with stuff because they're on the El Rey network, which is run by Robert Rodriguez. Okay. And he's a producer who does he does like the Machete films and stuff like that. Okay. So he's an exploitation fan. So they have like blood and stuff like that, which is starting to make its way back onto WWE programming, really, yeah. But they've been more PG over the last 10 years. So it's a different product, and it is kind of goofy because like characters will get killed on the show. Like last year, a character named B-Boy got his face eaten off, so he's just gone. Wow. But they have like not necessarily killed off characters and brought them back, but they've had the character's story arc end, and then like they get a new gimmick and they're back on the show. So it's the same wrestler but with a different mask, right? Playing a different character, so it's kind of goofy.
Well, it's funny.
Yeah, it's different. It's not really the same thing, but it's fun.
It's just another. It's a soap opera.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it really is.
It really is. It's even because a lot of people think of wrestling as being like a fake sport, when a lot of wrestling shows, and especially like Lucha Underground, is a show about a wrestling company. Right. And that's really what it is. Mm-hmm. Lucha Underground is the most explicit of them because it's not even a company that really exists. I mean, it is. It's a promotion, and they film these things, and it's live events, and people come to see them, but it's not like the WWE where they have this huge marketing, machine behind them, and like a big company and a huge like an organization and everything like that. So it's even more explicitly just a show about a wrestling company. Yeah. But it's fun. Last week they had a main event that got so bloody, Liz was like, I can't stand it. Too much blood. Their faces are all bleeding. But it's real blood, so I mean, I can see.
I can see that, absolutely.
Yeah, people think that they're like, "Oh, wrestling's fake," but it's like, except for a few rare occasions, the blood's almost always real. Yes, people cut themselves with razor blades to bleed. Yes, that's where it comes from.
And I mean, they do have to be athletes. They have to be able to do the stuff, and almost like they have to be better athletes to do the things fake, quote unquote. Yeah. To do them for real.
Right, because in wrestling, you're not legitimately trying to hurt your opponent. Right. So you could just if wrestling was real, you could just be dropping dudes on their heads left and right.
Right, exactly.
And killing them or paralyzing them and be the best wrestler in the world. Nobody can beat me because I just hurt people all the time. But to be good enough to not hurt your opponent and make it look real, right, that's a skill. Absolutely. And to make people care.
Right. And have the people who are getting hurt be able to take things the right way. Right. I mean, to know how to land and do all that stuff. I mean, the thing I always think about, there's certain moves that, this guy's putting this guy up into the suplex, and he's holding him straight up and down. No, he's not holding him straight up and down. The guy up top is holding himself straight up, right? So you've got this look, and he has to land the right way. Right. And, you watch like things like the pedigree. Well, his face is like that far from the mat, right, but he knows how he has to land and do the right thing. So, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot more going on there than just, I'm going to beat the crap out of you.
Right, yeah, because like you're saying, like a suplex looks impressive, and it looks like one guy just lifting the other guy with brute strength, but like, if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever seen clips of matches where there's some kind of miscommunication, or one wrestler feels like the other wrestler, quote unquote, took liberties with him, or is working sloppy, or there's just some kind of a disagreement with what's going on in the ring, and like somebody decides not to cooperate, but it gets ugly fast. Like if somebody tries to lift you and you don't want to be lifted, people can get hurt real quick. Like
Isn't that how Sting got hurt?
No, what
Wasn't
happens?
that there's not Roman Reigns? Who is the guy? The other
Seth
guy.
Rollins.
Right? Didn't he like screw up a move?
Not really. Seth Rollins gave him a turnbuckle powerbomb. Like he powerbombed him into the turnbuckle, which is kind of a dangerous move. It's not really that dangerous. People use it in the middle of matches all the time. It's by no means a finishing maneuver.
Right.
It's just, a guy Sting's age shouldn't really be getting powerbombed into a ring post, or like into a turnbuckle. But yeah, I mean, if you want to, I don't know, if you want to laugh, it's not necessarily funny, but like look up on YouTube and look for like just matches that have turned into shoots. Like there's a classic, I can't remember the dude's name, but there was a wrestler in the 90s, and he, I don't think he wrestles anymore actually, but he's still around, named Perry Saturn.
Oh God, Saturn, yes.
Yeah,
because
Saturn's a badass.
I remember him originally from ECW.
Yeah. He always played kind of a dopey character, like
he was the lunkhead jock.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But he had a match in WWE where like I don't remember what happened, but I think the other guy like potatoed him, which is like hit him just too hard. Like he hit him with a closed fist and like actually connected. And Saturn was not having it. And Saturn just grabs the guy by his trunks and just throws him through the ropes, and the guy just landed on the back of his neck. And he was just like, fuck this guy. Like, done. We're done. Like, ouch. You don't want that to happen.
No,
not at all. All right. Well, I think we went way over the we went over the 2-hour mark, so the episode's actually longer than last week's episode.
That's 2 in a row.
There'll be a little bit of editing, and I might actually truncate silences, so it may turn out shorter, so we'll see. But, yeah, we will talk to you guys next time.
That was Wayne.
Yep. Oh, I guess if you guys want to send us... in my whole career of podcasting, I don't think I've ever received any feedback, but we do have an email address. You can get us at WayneToddPod@gmail.com. And then if you look at the blog spot, we've got ways for you to contact us through Twitter. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. I haven't set up iTunes. I don't know if I'm going to, because it is honestly a huge hassle. The requirements for what you have to give them, like the information that has to be embedded in the metadata of every episode, is ridiculous. And like, I keep getting all these like conflicting, like, oh, your icon for your episode has to be this big. No, actually it has to be this big. And I'm like, whatever, man. Eventually maybe we'll do it, but I don't know. I think probably the way we have it set up and YouTube as is are enough ways for people to
at the very least us. Right now.
Yeah, right. But, so WayneToddPod@gmail.com. I don't even remember what our Twitter handle is, but if you want to know what it is...
It's all in the blog spot.
It's all in the blog spot. Just along the right-hand side, I made shiny new icons for them today.
Sparkly.
Well, they're not sparkly. This isn't MySpace.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But if we'd done this podcast like 10 years prior, it'd be sparkly. There'd be like a little auto playing like MIDI of a Nine Inch Nails song or something in the background or something. Who knows? All right, we'll talk to you guys next time.
See ya.
Bye.